Yeah, no,
that would be. I would love to be, because all that crap is done by committee, so you just know that
every part of the Eve right sends their own faction, like
see, it's just you just have it's just the all right next year or next 4 years or whatever, it's just going to be a Twitter space. It'll be a lot easier. If you don't have good mic quality, it's over. And that's how it's just going to be. So
representing the
2028 Republican National Convention will be hosted on Twitter. There'll be no worries about committees or optics. We'll just mute you accordingly. It'll be great.
Well, no, the representative of America First will be Lucas Gage, and the representative of the Baptists will be Solbra. And then I guess, like, I don't know, you have like the Wignats will be represented by Sven. And so like they'll have to like each have their speech. Then I don't know who will be
implying they would accept the invitation to begin with.
Who represent the Trad Cat? Maybe they'll get Trad. No, Tradical's Canadian. You can't do it. They'll get somebody. Like they'll get
Catholic Orca or someone.
Yeah, look at Catholic Orca. Then the Orthodox people, they'll send. Oh man, they'll send World War Now.
Oh no, I don't even think either of those two are American citizens, but that's fine.
They'll send Kirill from.
Why not? Why not? It's the RNC.
Well,
you don't need to be from America at this point to speak there. 60 years ago, I was like, you gotta go.
Well, they already accused JD Vance of being like, who's that one jerk? I'm not even gonna mention your name.
Hey, Mr. Obama, you can interrupt us at any time and tell us to shut up.
They called JD Vance a Russia shill, so I guess like they'll have Kirill from Russia's with Attitude next RNC.
I hope not.
Garak Obama finally on digital Archipelago episode
96.
96. That's almost 69.
Help me, Lord.
Thank you very much for having me. Gio, when I come out, can you introduce me as Sandbach Groiper?
Yes, exactly. We have Christopher Sandbach Groiper with us on the show, aka Garak Obama.
We can change your name on air if you'd like.
That should be fun.
Welcome.
Anyway. I don't know why I get such a kick out of your name, Garak Obama.
Garak Obama. Garak Obama. Depends on which DS9 actor is talking to the character's name. Always changed throughout 7 fucking seasons anyway.
Man. Did you watch all of DS9?
I did. It's probably the best.
It's great Kino.
It's Kino. It's probably the best.
It's post-liberal.
It's the best post TNG Star Trek you can get. It's serialized. It's Monsters of the Week crap kind of fade away after the first 2 seasons.
Oh, that's great. That's like
that sounds like Star Trek. 4.5 season long war arc, and it's just Kino. Although I like how it's like 2379 or whatever in the Star Trek universe, and a black guy is still complaining about racism from the 1960s.
That's like if
it's real.
Star Trek, yeah. Oh man. Anyways, we got you on the show, Garak, because you are a great political mind in terms of American politics. And what happened last week? It seems like we're in another time warp. It feels like we're in sort of like that feeling when Clownvid first hit, where like reality could go any which way. It kind of feels like that for some reason. But man, there's a lot to talk about anyways.
Yeah. Big week.
Big week.
You know what's wild is that I think less than a week ago, someone had like replied it to me to throw it in my face. I said, July 3rd, so right before the Independence Day, I said things are going to get sillier, and then someone replied earlier this afternoon, they sure did. I did not expect an attempted assassination to be on my list of things that would be quote unquote getting sillier, but yeah, here we are.
That's got to be the main story.
Yesterday
as far as content,
yeah.
I mean, the RNC, it is what it is. It's pretty, there was an appropriate outrage from our corner of things, but I think the assassination is probably the main story for, normal people.
Well, that and JD
Vance.
Just
completely. Yeah, let's go. Veron's, what was it? Veron's age, rape, lolly, hentai, gropers.
That was great. That was so great. That was amazing. Yeah, that's probably not real. I mean, if it was real, that'd be That'd be crazy.
You can simply just go to his following list and see who's there. Go to archive.today and find out who he was following a month ago.
Well, okay,
go from there.
But Garak is right. Let's go to the first order of the day, which the event of what happened with Trump, because there's a lot of like that literally was like time stopped that day in a weird way. But yeah, you guys go first. I mean, you're the Americans, so you know.
I'm not an American.
I'm the only American on the show.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Garak Obama is probably the biggest Anglo / I guess American Southern file I have ever met who's not an American.
It's like the meme of the Japanese guy who's like really into cowboy shit, or that Chinese guy with the Confederate flag.
Yeah, he's still active. He tweeted the other day.
Let's go.
I think Pill Eater knows him, or he was talking about him. I remember that was funny. So Trump was almost assassinated, and by the grace of God, he moved his head slightly. We've all seen that video.
He was saved by a Lobian immigration chart. Someone pulled up a Thule-Tide graphic, and he turned his head, and then he appointed a Thule-Tide vice president. So I'm thinking the sub-Marnite patriots are in control.
Yes, exactly, but slightly better than the new Marnites. Anyways, so.
Turns out bullet time is real. It's so true, Ikaros. It's so true. Bullet time is real. You too can be Max Payne if you try really hard.
But man. I think though, so people have like I was debating whether to mention the uproar like around a certain little guy, but maybe he's beneath mentioning. But it seems that even before this happened, the left was sort of engaged with a weird retreading or a reappropriation of a lot of like 2000s conspiracy culture that was centered around Project 2025. And now they've like continued on this bent. And a lot of people say that, well, because conspiracies, they're kind of like a sign of an absence of power. I don't really believe that, having studied them a big portion of my life. But I think that it's very weird how the rhetoric and like sort of the style of infographing and the presentation of something has now proceeded to saying that Trump staged this, or like he wasn't really being shot at, or it was a
they just killed that guy in the crowd. It was like they got a body double.
Yeah, it's like the it's sort of like
there was a squib. There was, and we should be careful, I guess, since it's on YouTube. But I mean, you can't blame this entirely on leftist stochastic terrorism simply because we don't know the motive, and of course the FBI isn't going to open his phone, despite the fact that they have his phone. They found his car, which allegedly had IEDs in it, or at least that's what CNN and Fox were reporting on Sunday. And so, but I mean, let's not kid ourselves. I think that's a through line that a lot of other guys in the sector, to use that term, like Orrin McIntyre and the rest, have pointed out. It's just like, well, it's not as if since 2015 when he went down the escalator that they haven't tried to paint him as the ultimate threat to America's democracy.
And there were shooting threats even then, like Russian.
And also, even in 2016, you had the Dallas police shooting. There were multiple events that, and not to mention 2020, that just made it clear that like leftists, you have carte blanche and a blank check from NGOs and other organized groups that you can raise hell and do terror. And so to see this finally happen, where really the purpose was Merrick from the Good Old Boys, so it went viral. He got over 2 million views on it. Like, they didn't want some Zapruder film. No, they wanted it on national television. Everyone could see brain matter and skull fragments on the teleprompter on national TV for millions of people to see.
Like
that's
Kennedy.
That was what they wanted. In high definition and 1080p, 60 FPS, cotton 4K. And that grace of God, didn't happen. Another man, Corey, did die, unfortunately, protecting his family. But this is not a surprise. I'm actually really surprised that it hasn't happened sooner, or that there hasn't been attempts on his life sooner. I mean, outside of the utter dropping the ball, and again, so much we still don't know, even a few days after the attempt, about the Secret Service failing. I mean, I just saw the video where they had to get a car to ram through the gate because none of them had wire cutters to cut through and to get to where the shooter was. It's absolute disaster from both law enforcement, the Secret Service, and again, you had that congressman who was on CNN earlier today just saying "Oh, well, this could have been intentional," and not an intentional way of well, hell, it could have been intentional, but we don't have enough to confirm that. But I'm not opposed to assuming that, considering that we were talking Tucker Carlson a year ago in August of 2023. Well, they got you out of office. They've indicted you. It hasn't done anything. So the next logical step is to kill you. And he said that 19 minutes into their interview, and Trump's kind of waving it
Which
away.
The indictments were all bullshit anyways. Let's be real about it.
They didn't work.
No.
Yeah.
Numbers
they were never going to work because even the Republicans still had a little bit of shame at that time to block it was the Republican Senate that blocked Garak. Was it the Senate or
Merrick Garland?
No, but who blocked those impeachment? Was it the Senate, right? That Republicans controlled? I forget how that works.
For impeachment, it wasn't.
You need 2/3, so
it
never really
happens.
Nothing ever happens.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no one has a supermajority in the Senate to make that happen right now. The closest we had was Barack Obama's first term.
Probably the influence of the Senate is, right after Trump was out, around January 2021. He was under that impeachment threat re-Jan 6, and I think that is behind a lot of his bad pardons and his bad decisions at the very last week of his term, was because Mitch McConnell essentially said, if you don't pardon, or people like Kushner, they were selling pardons. They were just trying to, prevent him from being convicted in the Senate. So I think you got to understand the end of Trump's term somewhat inglorious in that context, where they really were going to try and bar him from running again, kick him out if he tried to pardon the Jan 6ers. He was under a lot of pressure at the time. That's why I'm more forgiving.
Yeah, I saw Roden talk about this in the space, why didn't he pardon the J6ers? That was obviously one of the things. But if he would have done, obviously I think he should have, but if he would have done that, that would have been it would have been a huge middle finger though to the establishment. But I don't know if he could have done it if he had the capital to really.
Well, he would have been sacrificing his, future essentially. But there is value in him getting back in office. Obviously, we all understand that by now. So it was probably the right move. And I think all these people like Pedro Gonzalez, or even Fuentes now is sort of edging towards, why didn't you pardon them in term one? It's just, it's they just, I don't know if they're pretending to not get it, but yeah, there's a reason.
There is a reason, yeah, but I do think that, symbolically it would have been a principal thing, but that time was so messed up though, and Trump was being surrounded by people that, wouldn't really let him operate. And I wonder, if that would have caused some major thing. We have the documents, even generals like Milley saying they'll defy his orders. Then you have rat traitors like Vindman basically, welching on their own office because of Trump. So I wonder, yeah. But of course, it's just the recent thing, especially with JD Vance, but we'll get to that. But so the conspiracies on the political left is quite interesting. It's quite interesting how they're sort of doing the whole which I get, we all do it. I remember when Justice Ginsburg died, I did that painting, and but I think an innocent guy that just went to a Trump rally gloating over his death because he was a pro-Israel or whatever, most boomer chuds. It's just, I don't know. There was something uniquely disgusting about it. I guess the question is, what would happen if the bullet would have landed? What do you think? It would have been over in some ways for us.
Convention coup. Well, yeah, unnamed successor. I tend to agree with Scott Greer. His recent podcast, he goes into everyone saying, there's going to be a civil war, the chuds will rise up. He's like, actually, no, it'd just be really depressing. It would just kind of be over.
It would be like Obama, late term Obama, that feeling. 2012, 2013.
Yeah, forever.
Yeah.
History stopped forever. The real year the clock broke, not to spoil upcoming projects.
But no, but I think, yeah, that's why I believe like the Mayan calendar was correct. That like the switch sort of flipped in 2012. Something happened, and we can't go back. But
The woke
yeah,
went insane.
Well,
yeah, the world
yeah,
yeah.
the left has totally gone insane with the Eagle and the newspaper. But I think that the 2012 thing is right because I mean, what happens at the end of 2012? You know, we just had confirmation that Barack Obama is going to be president again. All those white papers and books about the emerging Democratic majority were there, and so they were like, wow, like the Republican Party in like white middle America or anything remotely conservative is dead. Like that was the takeaway to where even the
Yeah.
GOP was like, okay, well, we need a serious postmortem because Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan, who I think a lot of Paul Ryan has definitely turned into a snaky little shit, but like the stuff that he was talking about circa 2012 and 2014 is I think aged better than people think when it comes to policy, but no one cares about policy these days. And so you had an administration that had a white vice president that was basically ushering in the, you know, they'll put y'all back in chains, the ethnic grievances thing, a foreign policy that was, you know, a continuation of what we saw under Bush and an expansion of drone warfare policy while also shifting things with trying to get away from Israel in a different context, and not to mention the Iran agreement. So the entire political orthodoxy of the last, you know, 30 years had really changed under Barack Obama. And I think he's so consequential in that respect. And I don't think anyone's done a proper retrospective on that presidency. And so, you know, this huge wave of hubris comes in, like, oh my God, we won. You know, like now we can do what we want. And so, even though Barack Obama gets told no by the voters in 2014, in his second term midterm election, in both the House and Senate, what Obama says is screw it. I'm going to double down. I'm going to lay the framework with judicial appointments and policies like free college, free health care, and we're going to try and get immigration reform. We're going to get new amnesty. We're going to get Gang of Eight. We're going to do all these things. And there's not a damn thing that you can do about it.
Obergefell too. That was
Oh,
another
and
one.
Obergefell v. Hodges happened in 2015 as well. So I mean, like you had a politically and cultural transformation take place. That not to mention the Dear Colleague letter too, with colleges and
Oh God.
campus culture, all unleashed under that presidency. And so yeah, like the left has totally gone off the cob, absolutely. And Barack Obama's a big harbinger of that. And so of course the backlash came, and someone
Well,
said "fuck you,"
well,
for better or for worse, and here we are.
well, Garak, you're very good on the history of, I guess you could say, like the new right or this thing of ours or the e-right, as I like to call it. At that time, you really didn't have. I mean, the ever looming threat of like being doxxed by Antifa and having your life ruined. That was like that really did accelerate when Trump was elected for obvious reasons. But in in the early Obama years, like even when it seemed like the neocons were on their way out, and they became like, what did Max Blumenthal call in his book? Like they became humanitarian interventionists. It was like you did have people, like you did have countercurrents, you did have Richard Spencer, you did have like the old guard of like what people call white nationalism 1.1. You had like normie conservative, you had like Ron Paul types, like Tea Partiers, but it wasn't like what you would consider nowadays as like the DR. I mean, no, I shouldn't say that. You did have like Moldbug, and you did have like Neo Reaction was like getting off the ground, but it was
Back when Moldbug was good.
yeah. But so, what was the picture like? Like, was it just Trump crystallized a lot of these different trends, or was it that the right wing didn't really have a reason until Obama to be so galvanized?
I
Yeah,
think there's actually a lot in the Tea Party because I think one of the main changes through even before Trump was sort of the switch to online, you know, the rise of things like Infowars, people
yeah,
getting their news from like already that had put a big dent in the neocon hegemony over the right, which is enforced through television, through print media, journalism, you know, all these things that no one cares about anymore. So I think that was already starting to be weakened. And the first expression was the Tea Party. It was this lulbert thing, but as tends to happen, the lulberts got red pilled, and that's how you get TRS and stuff like that on the extreme. But even then, you'd sort of like a vague paleo comeback, and Coulter, Steve Saylor getting big. So I would really say it was the internet, and then that created the circumstance that allowed someone like Trump to rise. But there was sort of populist
not to
anger in the
mention
hinterlands.
not to mention, like, this is also when Rod Dreher was, like, just borderline Fed posting every other day of the week in the American Conservative. Like,
Who was it? Was it David French or David Frum who was like a full-on Confederate flag defender? Like,
I'm pretty
just
sure it
David
was
French.
David French, but I
Because
mean,
David
like,
Frum was always a neocon, yeah, even
well,
when he was
yeah,
in Canada. So.
David French was like your George W. Bush era evangelical, like, culture warrior. But I mean, like, the Rod Dreher you know today of, like, the Benedict option or Live Not by Lies, totally different man than what he was when Barack Obama was first getting into office, and he was just like this full-on culture warrior, letting you know that, like, troons are gonna come for you, and it's, like, over for you. Like, Barack Obama must be taken out of office by any means. Like, just full-on boomer waffen Fed posting, and it's totally just a shadow of the man that he is today.
Mhm.
And but yeah, like, Garak's right. Like, you had the early internet, you had the rise of social media, Facebook organizing, Twitter just really begins to be a thing. Although right wing Twitter, as we know it, is not exist at all in any way, shape, or form. It's still the blogosphere, and it's still a lot of these a sort of alt. I don't want to say alt like because that has its own term, but these
that's a more
alternatives.
later division.
Yeah, it's later. I mean, just these
Yeah.
alternative ways and means to approach things. I mean, even when Moldbug is blogging in 2007, he's like sort of criticizing Town Hall. But like, if you were a conservative, like, Tea Party advocate, or you hated George Bush and you wanted something better for the GOP, like, Town Hall was still your place to go. And that was
Lou
sort of the ways.
Rockwell was big. LouRockwell.com.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you had like a lot of people that
When
were
the
weirdos.
when the libertarians predicted, like, their own demise, it was so depressing. Like,
Yeah.
although it's really, though, more so in, like, the late 90s, like right after Rothbard dies, and one of the last things that Rothbard really writes about is just talking about how libertarianism is Lou and himself knew it was going to die to, like, modal libertarianism. So the whole, like, fuck you, dad, I don't want to go to church and I want to smoke weed, that he basically laments that's like,
Kathy Reesewitz libertarianism.
well, he's just like, that needs to die, otherwise, like, this is what's going to become of the libertarian movement. And then you look at, like, the convention today and you're like, oh, Murray, if only you knew.
No,
But he
but
did
see,
know.
from my experience at this time in Canada, like you had like the National Post, and you had the Western Standard with Ezra Levant, and then he was also building his like media empire at the time, and they were all like, they were all like neocons and Zionists. And then you had like, they were like, some of them were religious conservatives, because you had people like before he like did a 180, you had people like Michael Corrin and the Corrin Show, and they had like a lot of these counter jihad people that were still really big. And that was sort of like the outlet if you were like a Canadian conservative. It was like you had social issues, and you had like counter jihad, and you had like Israel worship.
Very,
And then,
very much the same in Australia. Yeah, like they definitely push I mean, we have Rebel
Yeah.
News here. I believe we do. For the time being, like, but it was real then too, and I think
yeah.
people understate now how much, like, counter jihad was a big thing, was a big factor behind
Yeah.
Trump 16. Like, build, the Muslim ban, and like, he was always kind of of that persuasion. But at the time, it was a big issue, like with ISIS running around, and it's a testament to his Middle East policy that people don't talk about it anymore. But that was huge. It was a huge part of. I remember that in the 2010s.
Oh
being
yeah.
key to his appeal.
Like, and there was a big switch, because I remember it's funny how nowadays people were talking about Dylan doing the Hindu prayer, but with the Muslim issue, like, I remember there still was that like jet lag from the neocon days, because the Democrats, they brought out that couple that said like Trump was like demonic and hated democracy. They were like that Muslim couple. There's like, Donald Trump, you want to evil? You remember that guy? This was like when he did the Muslim ban. Oh, what was his name?
Do you mean the Gold Star family? That
Yeah,
I remember that guy. He was crazy. Like, he was like going up there with his wife, and apparently like his son died in Afghanistan or Iraq or somewhere, and he was talking about how Trump was evil. Like,
Kazir Khan is who you're talking about.
Yeah. that was Kino, though. I remember like Trump like insulted them in one speech. It was hilarious, right? But that was like a testament to like the 2000s sort of the state of the culture war. And you did have like all of these like undertow of different ideas bubbling in the background. Like, I mean, then like, you had like your old school Jared Taylor, Amran type of deal. you also had like Garrick was saying, the remains of the Tea Party, and then of course the Tea Party got subverted. But then like Trump really was sort of a crystallization, and of course we're ignoring Gamergate. Like that was like honestly, that was the ground zero. Excuse me, that was like the ground zero of everything, because now Gamergate became like this weird filter for everything. And that
I think that really is a testament to people's frames of reference and their online consumption, just because Gamergate is the source of everything, but it's just like, well, there's also like 9/11, the election of Garak Obama, all these other things.
What'd you say, Garrick?
I was a Sargon head. I was a big, actually, I've talked about this with Prue before. My origin story is significantly tied up with Razor Fist and his but he's a perfect example. He's like this Tea Party-ish, like weird, hard right Arizona,
hard conservatarian type guy, big into his
libertarian,
his
who's also like
millennial grow up culture.
But that's awesome. Like in a way, I've never actually stopped believing that.
No, you don't want to either, but you also know that things have gotten so much worse from where things had started that it's kind of hard to hold on to those sort of core principles from what you like listened to early on. Because it was really funny for me, because like that time frame, you're listening to like Razor Fist or Sargon, but also like at the same time, at the time I drove when I was going to college, I drove a 2006 Ford Taurus. I drove this like god awful, ugly, tan, gold looking boat. But my and this old car had, of course, the radio, and so I would listen to the EIB network. I'd listen to Rush Limbaugh.
Excellence in broadcasting.
I would listen to it earlier in the around the midday when he would go on, and then as I'm driving to go to work in the evenings, I would go listen to All Things Considered by NPR, and then when I was done, I'd go home and then listen to like the latest This Week in Stupid or whatever. And it was just like a bizarre way to filter information, because it's like, okay, I have my libtard source, I have my boomer con source, and then I have this like Englishman telling me how stupid these social justice warriors are. And 10 years later, here we are.
No, but that's the thing though. Like someone, I think it was Louis Cachet, said Sargon planned this because the guy allegedly had a Shadali. Like there was a picture of him, the shooter, with a Shadali saying in the background. And I was listening to an Arturo space and Yoshi. He was like, see, Sargon planned it because Trump didn't say Gamergate too. That was like the whole...
Truly responsible.
Yeah, but leading up into Trump though, where are we going with this trip down memory lane? So now
we're just having a little fun.
No, but like the crystallization of the E-right. So yeah. So
is it really that crystallized, or
no,
I find this space is so much more fluid.
Well, I mean, as we've seen in the events of the past few days, I mean, but so leading up to this, it truly was a spectacular moment. Like, of course, his fist being in the air, like that was an image for the ages. That image will probably truly go down in history. And it is very funny how all of a sudden you have this discussion about political violence. Like I was reading this like absolutely terrible. Who's that writer? His like got a Groucho Marx avatar. His name, he's like some soy journalist. Like he was talking about like how minorities feel victimized every day because of Trump's rhetoric, and it's like that's why we shouldn't like change anything, because really he deserved it. And
that narrows it down in no way.
Oh, let me look it up. I have it.
You're going to have to look it up because I just...
So this piece is by A.R. Moxon, Gambling in Casablanca. And it talks about how he wrote this like whiny thread that I just had to reply to, but it basically boiled down to, as libtards, we're not going to take you seriously until basically you bend the knee to all of our social policies, including getting rid of all guns, housing everybody, open borders, medical for all. And it's like this like very windy justification.
Did you say medical? Was he actually saying Medicare for all?
Like medical coverage for all.
Oh, okay.
Like including illegals. And but then of course David Frum wrote a similar piece basically justifying it, saying that Trump and the shooter was on the same level, and that this firefighter that got redacted, that he was a casualty. He was basically like Destiny posting but in the the Atlantic. Yeah. But and so you see this like reaction from the libs where they're concocting this narrative of deflecting by saying that, well, actually we're the real victims, and this rhetoric of violence was all caused by the Trump tards, and this is why it's sort of like that infamous tweet by some black Twitter person. It's like, what did you think decolonization meant? Writing essays? It was sort of like gloating over it. But yeah, so I don't know. I don't know if you read any of this stuff.
No, I'd kind of expected the absolute worst, and I followed Bog Beef's excellent advice of just not interacting because I don't want to give Destiny alimony money. Although Oren went after him today, which was perfectly fine. I'm let the larger accounts go do battle like they're supposed to do. Let the theater go on. Let it spill out into the streets and
why contain
churches. You can't contain it.
Well, let me read you some of this from this AR Mox. He says,
sure.
It's culpable for this act of political violence for the crime of accurately representing Donald Trump for what he is, namely a clear and present danger to end democracy in this country and place it with a fascist theocracy. Oh my God, I wish. We know that the danger of Trump and his party because it's exactly what he and his party promised to do. It's exactly what is written in their massive plan, and it's what his crowd cheers for. It seems that maybe accommodated for blah blah blah. Where's a spicy one? Bullies always see opposition preventing them from committing violence as an act of violence. I've noticed and then use the alleged violence as an excuse for committing the violence they've already been committing against, the BIPOCs, the LGBTQIA. They'll hold you down and hit you with your own hand and ask you why you're hitting yourself. And if they accidentally hit themselves while they're doing it, they beat you harder for the pain they'll claim you inflicted.
Yeah.
Wow, did he just do cries out as they...
Yeah,
wow,
as they strike you, yeah. Fascists, like any narcissist, act in boundless bad faith and are fully capable of using a newfound opposition. And keep in mind, this guy is like a glasses, soy beard type of person. Newfound opposition to political violence in order to justify political violence. And now our national bullies have been handed a new excuse to ask why we're hitting ourselves. Then he goes on to say, but yeah, Democrat politicians are saying we should end violence, and like they're perfectly good, and they're you know what, like libs will do the whole thing where it's like Democrats, they're held by their principles from actually going off, right? So people in the political movement that openly call for civil war have this in common with the rest of us. They apparently have a real problem with actual shots actually being fired, although for them the opposition appears confidently excluded to cases where they feel they might be the target. Bullies hate to bleed their own blood. The movie Dodgeball taught us that. Oh my God, what a fucking! I can't say
high school sociology. It's just retarded.
Yeah,
like
Yes, the MAGA today apparently don't want to live in a world of normalized violence and massacre weapons that are readily accessible to anybody with a trigger finger and a grudge. And so I'd like to act on their opposition as offered in good faith. Invite them to join us in our opposition to living in that world. So yes, let them join us if they want in opposing violence by opposing its causes. Let them join in enacting sweeping national gun legislation, removing far-right supremacists.
Unilateral disarmament.
Yeah. Stop blocking and sabotaging all efforts to combat climate change. Work with us to transform our society to something sustainable. Let us work to restore regulatory and civil rights protections, and to the punitive carceral system that's spent those same decades building. Let them work for sustainable and affordable education, housing, medical care. Let them stop enacting the meticulous and detailed plan of domination and cease their endless and accelerating demonization rhetoric against every type of marginalized community.
Yeah, there was a lot of that at the RNC, if you didn't notice.
Yeah.
Real
lot of
plan
that.
rally.
There was a lot of
rally
that,
there.
yeah.
Yeah, Savitri Devi, they went pretty hard.
They had Ananda Kumaraswamy come back, yeah. They had Amber Rose, Come on, man, don't you?
Truly, there will be peace in our time. Absolutely crazy.
I do feel like there's a disconnect, though. I mean, you do have sort of live journalists, but I feel like a lot of ordinary people are like, there probably still is, 50% plus one, probably more than that, of libs who do think, okay, we shouldn't, blow our opponent's head off on national TV. Like, there is a bit of that. I don't know. I just think, I mean, fortunately, you probably got the best. What are they saying? The best outcome possible from an assassination attempt. In a way, except for the man who died, obviously. Uh, I don't know. I feel like you could very much just be cynical and Machiavellian for a moment. You could totally leverage it to take the issue of political violence away from the left. Like every time someone mentions January 6th from now on, you can just be like, well, you know, your sarcastic terrorism in the pages of the Atlantic led to this awful, Zapruder film esque. I feel like that's what they're going to run with. I mean, we'll see what Trump's speech is like tomorrow, I guess. But he's gotten very spiritual. He's talking about unity.
Absolutely. He looked super emotional. He'd made reference that he had felt the presence, but I think that the sort of the space in the media has already gone, and that it's sort of it's a two-pronged attack on it, which is of course attacking the United States Secret Service. It's a shame that America has some kind of just again slope, like you can't, you're going to give an excuse like, oh, it's sloped roof, even though they were on sloped roofs earlier or whatever. So I mean, like you have people going after on the Secret Service beat, and I'm trying really hard not to make any jokes about things that start with SS, and at the same time you've got everyone going on the stochastic terrorism route, and that seems to be the two-pronged approach there. I mean, even does anyone really believe Joe Biden when he says that like political violence isn't the answer?
No, because if you saw his speech today, Yoshi was actually tuning me into the speech. He basically he literally almost blamed Trump for what happened, because he's like, children die from guns, and he was yelling and being like, so no, Joe Biden does not take.
Like I saw that reply a lot where it was, get back to me when it's like about a school full of like third graders or whatever.
Yeah,
like I saw that one a lot, and then of course
I've seen like Biden's such a massive piece of shit. Like honestly, like I just hate hearing him talk. I hate his whiny voice. It reminds me of Destiny, actually, when Destiny
come
talks.
on, man.
Yeah, like he's
gotta make America something.
No, but like when he gets angry, it's even worse. He's like, they're guns, they're kill children, and it's like, oh my god,
it's because the drugs kicked in.
But gun control, I feel like people talk about that less now. Like I think
nobody cares
on the
about
left.
Gun control.
They prefer the John Brown gun club to.
I was about to say, like, gun control has been so dead.
Yeah,
it's because they've taken on a sort of they want to co-opt the sort of libertarian-ish. Like,
they want the John Brown gun club. Yeah.
Of course, the trans shooter in Nashville kind of took the wind out of their sails on that one.
Just a tad.
I think that's going to be the trend. I don't know. Maybe these people on Twitter will all grow up eventually. And but I think for the time being, like, gun control really is dead. Like, when's the last? They tried to move some legislation on it a couple of years ago, but
like a major legislative push.
Biden cares about it because that's one of his only sort of legislative achievements. But I really do feel like when the gun sales are rising, it's just not. I don't know. It's strange, but it definitely marks a transformation in the priorities of the left. I think they'd rather arm BIPOC people than
take away the guns from everybody. Yeah. Well, I think because their fear is that any administration that's overtly Republican will maybe one day actually become red-pilled and will use them. They can't control. They'll no longer have like General Milley there to like basically co-opt the military anymore. And so I think that's why they're worried about it. So they've bought into like the libertarian rhetoric. But let me just read you the last part. This is the last paragraph from this A.R. Moxon, who I assumed was like an irony leftist, but apparently he is like some journalist. He says, this is like such a doozy, by the way. I just had to read this on air. I'm like giggling right now. As long as MAGA America continues to force us to live in their world of menace and abuse, I recommend we decline to take the blame for getting hit. Instead, keep opposing them with the exact same vigor as before, in the same way, and for the exact same reason. Not because we want a world of violence, but because we want a world without, because we understand what is causing violence, because in our opposition, we are demonstrating our hopeful and expected commitment to something better. Hopefully they won't be shocked at this. Like, there's such a gay little, like at the very end, it's like, I hope you're not being shocked at this, that we're not going to apologize. It's like, it's such like I read that. I'm like, that's basically what the libs believe in now. Like, you can't really, You know what I mean? Like it's over. Like they're never going to like really have this principled stance because there's no there really is no like I mean it was probably a lie to begin with, but there really is no precedent to say that okay, we live in a common shared society and ergo we have to like respect each other because we all live in the same country. Like that's like long gone. There's like that's not a reality anymore. There literally is just two Americas. And I mean in the Western world it's like that in general. That's why I'm very skeptical when people say there's no left or right. I mean, I get where they're coming from, some of them, but I think that they're very good shelling points as to describing the way things are. And so you're not going to like really expect. I tweeted this out the hour it happened. I said, don't expect them to do any of this like principled denouncing of it. It's not really true. Because there's no reason. If this happened to Biden, would any of us be like, oh, this is wrong? Like, let's be honest with each other. Let's be honest with each other. Would we really shed any tears for Biden if something like this happened? Like, I don't know.
Well, it would be the last white Democratic front runner. So in that sense,
it would be the rip the Democratic Party that was formerly the selling itself as the party for the white man. But I mean,
yeah,
I think I really it's not that I would feel lamentation. I mean, I'm sure that I would in some sense that like, well, things have seriously gone even more crazy than
I'd feel terrible because it would be terrible for us. It would be over.
Well, it'd be terrible for everybody because it's like, well, great. Because who did that awful film back in 2008? It was towards the end of Bush's term. And it was just like, what if scenario that like Bush gets assassinated and then like Dick Cheney becomes president and then it's like 4 or 8 more years of just like crazy neoconservative.
It would be like Dark Cheney.
Yeah, that's basically what the shtick was. That was the premise of the film. And it was like done as like a quasi-historical documentary type deal. And it was like awful. And because again, like, okay, something happens to Biden. It's not like Kamala Harris, of course, like becomes president, which is even more terrifying. But I mean, the security apparatus is going to just go unhinged.
It'll go crazy, yeah.
The intelligence community will become just unleashed.
It'll be like
unchanged.
with Germany. It'll be like Germany. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be.
I mean, like current day Germany, because like you know what happened with Compact. Well, we could talk about.
Well, yeah, that too. Compact magazine, which I don't consider right wing at all. Yeah, they were kicked out of Germany.
No, it's 2 different ones. No.
Oh, there's 2 different Compact magazines.
Compact magazine in Germany is this like hard right, like anti-Polish, like
well,
like AFD.
It's not.
No, it's not the American Compact. It's totally different. It's.
Oh,
really
I was sincerely hoping that Sohrab Ahmari had been arrested and executed, but no, it's
by real German patriots.
By real German patriots, absolutely. By real German monarchists.
They're 2 different things because I know people were talking about like, oh, Twingsorg was arrested and hauled off to a black site. I'm like, man,
Zeitenwende. No, Compact in Germany is pretty cool actually. They write articles about the eternal Pole inciting World War II. So they're kind of a bit on the borderline there.
Some interesting.
Yeah, they were getting on the borderline of like mid-century German, right? That's what their accusation was.
I mean, come on, like let's be honest. East Germany is pretty much like.
I mean, that's where.
Yeah, communism shielded them from guilt.
It's the AFD right there.
Yeah. No, but like, didn't their experience with the Stasi and like East Germany, like, didn't it like in a weird way it shielded them from the guilt of yeah.
Kind of. I don't want to get too like, I'm not really into Yorkie's view of the Cold War. I do kind of like the Bundesrepublik, at least before what it's become. But I think you also have to be careful because a lot of the people who are the current AfD voters were like punks in the 80s.
Yeah,
they were against the Stasi.
Yeah,
but you can make the argument that the way that the Soviet bloc understood the Holocaust was not as a sort of uniquely Jewish thing or even a racist thing, but like expression of capital. And just the way that they were taught about the 20th century was very different across the society. I think that's a major factor.
Wow, that's very interesting. Yeah, they had like I know like even the Soviets. I mean, a lot of like leftoids nowadays that sort of want to distance themselves from the Soviet Union, they talk about how like the Soviet Union was still anti-Semitic and they taught history differently. And I think, East Germany definitely was an extension of that. So they have sort of like a different awareness, but that's very interesting. I didn't know there was 2 compacts. That's crazy. I thought the Sorbamari and Tingsorg memes were funny though, but
If only.
if,
In 2025, Sorav will be sent back to Iran.
but
one can only wish.
But no, but
The
so
Nina Power thing was crazy. I don't know if
it
I don't know
was
if you guys
pretty
ever
crazy.
covered that. Like,
No, we haven't covered it. Although I think both Gio and I have read through the transcripts of all that stuff, and then I saw Daniel's.
would you classify
post
Nick
and
Land as a racist writer?
Depends on his Twitter presence
Depends.
or not.
Well, it depends on which essay you're writing. Because for me, my favorite. Anyone asks, is Nick Land a racist? And I'm like, no, because that's just survival plus intelligence. There's nothing more else than that.
He's not. He's like a Sinophile. He's pretty. Like,
He's a gematria obsessed Sinophile. He's an interesting character.
No, but then like they say that like right wingers always use that excuse, like Antifa people, they'll point to like Jared Taylor being a cinephile, and or like being like a political weeaboo.
That's kind of always been a thing, though. I'm reading a biography of Francis Galton, and there's one part where he calls for the Chinese to colonize Africa, which is quite
my
precious.
God.
So eugenicist sinophilia really does go back to like the 1800s.
He was ahead of the curve, though, when you like look at Africa nowadays, being colonized by the Chinese. That's crazy.
It's happening.
That's amazing. But so I think like to get back to the Trump thing though, what really like there's a lot of things to say, but I'm like sort of it was like a very weird event, and I think like I'm not entirely surprised by the discourse around it. It was a huge boost to people, but of course, like the RNC was a huge glass of like cold water being dumped on everybody. But it was sort of like people, they now have the idea that Trump's presidency is inevitable. Now, just to be a baseless contrarian,
I personally don't know.
It's 5 months away.
It is not over until all the lawsuits are over.
They have
2.5 months after the election.
I still think it's going to be close, but it's interesting that people, definitely overseas, like everyone I talk to is like, oh, he's just going to win, isn't he? Everyone's kind of making plans for that and assuming it's going to happen, which is a weird place to be in. And, with Elon throwing in 45 million a month, like there's a lot of, it just feels more, in a way, it feels like more of a professional operation. I mean, the E-Right, we get hung up on the RNC and stuff like that, but really, I mean, we're probably the only people who watch it, or boomers who thought it was great.
They got that young girl there, and she's reformed, and look at that. Isn't it great? There's like nudes of Amber Rose. Not that I would say go and look for nudes of Amber Rose. Don't do that, but they exist.
Yeah, don't do that. Her OnlyFans special ends tomorrow. That was a fun thing to see on the timeline today.
Amber Rose has an OnlyFans.
That's what your super chat money is going towards, everyone. You're seeing it.
Yeah,
you see it now.
Just a reminder.
It's research. Yeah.
Do not research. Do not research.
Wasn't the shooter a gooner too? Like he had so many thousands of dollars a month in OnlyFans. Was that true, or was that like a baseless?
I have no. I had no confirmation on it, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, the MAGA discount, 10% off Amber Rose OnlyFans MAGA discount.
Yikes. The only time I'm going to use that word unironically would just right there. Bone chilling, as they say.
Shooter gooner.
Shooter gooner shooters. That's what. See, that'll be a genre in 6 months. It's gonna
Negative
be
XP is kind of like on the verge.
Well, because like you have boomer shooters, you have all those H-Rot and Dusk and other kind of shooters, but now they're gonna throw in the anime girl on top of it.
Did you ever play H Doom?
HD
Doom?
Yeah,
H Doom is kind of like a gooner shooter.
So, I mean, it's coming. It's coming, unironically.
Isn't Toho from a different lens, kind of like a gooner shooter?
They will be coming.
I shouldn't say that, but Toho is pretty good. I'm not saying that. But I'm just saying, like, there has been hentai shooters, hasn't there?
I'm
It's gotta
sure.
be.
I'm
Yeah.
sure. On the dregs of the Steam library, I'm sure you can find it. But we're calling it now. It's the Gooner Shooter is a genre for video games, and not dead attempt.
Oh,
See now someone has to take up the reins because Stephen Sondheim already died, and he wrote this great musical that never gets played for obvious reasons called Assassins. And it's just like the shtick is that it's every attempted and successful presidential assassin, all kind of singing their songs and talking to each other in a bar. And it's just like, so now like you just need this like crooks guy to go in there and be like, well, hey, you heard of OnlyFans? And then like John Hinckley Jr.'s like, what the hell are you talking about?
I think he'd be down with that. He'd be down with that.
Oh yeah,
Probably would be.
but
that's quite a
anyways,
common thread, actually. Well, I mean, Cholgosh, who got McKinley, he was like into Emma.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Whatever. You know what I mean. Or I don't know. Did Oswald slay pussy? I'm not sure, but
No. Well, Lee Harvey Oswald had a wife and daughter.
His wife is all right looking.
John Wilkes good.
John Wilkes.
John Wilkes Goon.
Lee Harvey.
Six Semper Priapus or whatever,
Wife. His wife, wasn't she like a Soviet agent or something?
She was
like
a Russian.
Yeah, there was some weird connection there. But well,
and they stayed in the Dallas area for quite some time.
Yeah, that's right.
Or at least the daughter did, if I recall correctly.
The real red pill that the Soviet Union killed JFK.
Well, yeah, that.
No, I'm too bigoted to let go of my previous suppositions on who's probably responsible for JFK's assassination.
But well, the JFK one, to draw a parallel with Trump, I think it's interesting the way it's remembered. It was, it's done by a left-wing guy ostensibly, but it just gets packaged. When you hear about it in school, they tell you about it alongside the John Birch Society's attacks on JFK. So you sort of like the normie thinks, oh, it's just a time of hatred, and the far right had something to do with it, when in reality they totally had nothing to do with it. And you could very much see the Trump, if we lose, I think they're going to teach the Trump assassination attempt in the same way. Just the rhetoric.
It's really insane how it's taught in American schools, because it goes from McCarthyism to JFK dies and then the Great Society.
Yeah,
like there is no in between.
And wholesome Chungus civil rights.
It's just like
people.
In one breath. It's like, well, by the way, like the McCarthyites and all these evil like right wingers are like trying to go after like alleged communists and like their newspapers and their shoes. And then all of a sudden JFK died, and then LBJ is president. And then all of a sudden, like, would you look at that? We have the civil rights movement. America's so great, and everything's been fine ever since. And then Reagan came along, and it was awful. And it's just this like long running sentence of just slop. And if you've ever, and I know none of my audience is in high school or anything like that, but for those who remember, say, like their AP US history classes, it would be like really emphatic on like the founding, the Constitutional Convention, leading up to the Civil War, the turn of the 20th century. And then from like World War I onward, it's like the last 3 weeks of the class before the exam. And so like that's American history is just taught in a really wonky way, to where none of that, the ins and outs of like of what the decades that fundamentally transformed the country for the worst get covered, because A, they're not really on the test, and B, they want you to get tested on all sorts of stuff, although I don't know what those exams are like nowadays. But it is wild to think that like the American historiography of its progressivism gets buried as these like good things. And I mean, I'm saying this and taking it for granted that like, yes, obviously like we want to, the regime reifies and reiterates how important these progressive waves are in the United States history. But it's just like, they're not as, what's so sinister about them is that when you're in education, like you don't think about them as like, oh, I'm being propagandized. I'm like, oh no, this is just the history of my people. And then all of a sudden, like, yeah, those based female suffragettes, they were totally right about stopping men from drinking and getting the vote. And it's just like, then you're like, you look back and you're like, holy shit, this is what I was taught for like 5 years in school. This is insane. And I think that's sort of when anyone starts questioning their own politics or like what they were taught to themselves. I think history is always the greatest red pill of them all, because it's a never-ending wellspring that you can drink from.
But that's crazy, though, that the future history books will reinterpret Trump's assassination as like the most libtarded way possible. And there's already libtards who are talking about that. I even heard Our old
Well,
frog,
it's going to be
an old
taught in a
frog
way.
saying that that basically one of us, like they'll teach like some like groiper who's like a or they'll teach like some like wignat that like hates Trump because he thinks Trump is like a cuck or whatever. Like he was the one that went out and did it.
He was red pill
I mean,
on Discord, Jack.
Yeah. Like it's going to go in a way where what will happen
The
is
kid
going
that
to be
grew up
highly
listening to Fash the Nation went out and tried to.
That's
Oh,
not true. When we win, his children are going to have to stand for the anthem and then also have to sing along to a Walt Bismarck song. The cover of the textbook is going to be a Trump bronze statue. You just got to trust the plan, okay? None of this, like, future Chinese historians.
You're gonna have to like
know.
listen. You're gonna have to like listen to T77 history lectures in school.
What
Like-
if instead of math class we had racial statistics with Steve Saylor? Have you seen that edit?
Yeah, every meme that you can think, every meme you can think of.
What was the other one? It was like Base University. This is like a 4chan graphic, and it's like, oh god, I gotta.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Hakan was teaching anthropology or something.
My
like
favorite
that.
tweet. My favorite tweet was one that I think you shared it, Garak. If from World War II, if the mid-century Germans won, we still would have had the New Age movement, but it would have been like esoteric Evolian Rosicrucians versus like psychedelic Austrian painter.
There would have been a lot more Rosenberg posting, a lot more Alfred Rosenberg.
We still would have had the New Age movement, but it'd be like perennialists versus like.
I think a lot of
Evolians.
left wingers are independently coming to that. I think they've realized, they don't know how they're shooting themselves in the foot with this, but there's a lot of new writing about how, drug culture wasn't even that progressive, and rock stars, slept with young women.
Yeah,
it was kind of
they're doing that.
there was a reactionary element to it. So they're just ceding all the cool shit to us, obviously. And then when you realize that skinheads funded their operations by selling weed or like once you realize that the left doesn't have a monopoly on sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and that's why the BAP stuff is so compelling. I think whether or not it's conservative. What the point is, the dime square phenomenon is useful in that it's like, oh wait a second, we can be hedonists and also not be left wing. And once that sort of clicks, it's like, oh, why? What's the point of becoming left wing? It's just moralism at that point. It's just like.
Although you have to laugh at it too, because it perfectly contradicts it totally clashes with like everything like the National Review had been writing for like the last 30 years. Because like you go back to like 2014, 1995, and then 1985, there are like 3 different articles where it's just like conservatism's the new punk rock, it's the new counterculture, and it's just like, well, sure, but also at the same time, you're still a bunch of dorks that are writing like the Weekly Standard, and no one really cares if you're under 35 what Irving or Bill Kristol has to say anymore, because that's just not what I get my media from. I mean, this is the thing about the media transformation too, about like these politics. This is that the internet has kind of been this great playing field, and this is where I think Nick Land is right about disintermediation being one of the most important things that this sort of side of things has, is because John Stewart's going to hell, but not for the reasons you think. It's because like he just ruined a whole generation of voters into thinking that like that was the news. And the real red pill is the same red pill that you would get from like the people of Walmart.com. Like, actually, no, there are just that many morons out there that are this easily gullible and are trashy and are stupid and do believe that this is the truth. And, it's a great way to throw your predilections about democracy out the window. And so like you look at that, and then now here we are, maybe to fast forward to today. Like, I think just think about like the rhetoric maybe a year and a half ago, like when Trump was announced his reelection formally, and everyone was saying like him not being on Twitter was going to hurt him. I think it's actually helped him. Because it's not, because Trump is still posting on Truth Social, but unless you're on Truth Social, no one gives like you're not on it, right? Like you don't know what Trump's saying. You're gonna get it from
boomers
the media.
Are on it. Yeah,
you're gonna get it from the media, or you're gonna get it from like screenshots from people on Twitter. And so
even during the debate, like he received good advice, which was just to shut up and
it was just to shut
let
up.
Biden talk, and it worked.
And so in the whole aftermath of the debate, which again was only just a couple of weeks ago, this whole like attempted palace coup on Joe Biden, which if anything, the assassination attempt has probably solidified Joe Biden's chances of just staying in for the ticket.
I didn't think anything of it anyways. I always knew that Joe Biden was going to be there, because to get rid of him would be basically conceding the election to Trump. But yeah, go ahead, Prue. Go ahead.
No, that's a whole other discussion. I think that there was no one who wanted to be the sacrificial lamb
Right.
for this election, even if they had a chance at winning, which they still do. Like, let's not kid
Oh, that's
ourselves.
what I
Like,
mean. I'm still banking on
I'm
not
I'm
that they're gonna
still
win
I am
totally,
still
but
banking.
yeah.
Let's be abundantly clear about what happens in November. I Jim Clyburn of South Carolina and his entire political machine will be doing everything in its power to ensure that there are 100,000 morbidly obese black people counting ballots for Joe Biden 5,000 times over. It's going to happen. It will happen. It happened last time. It happens every election. You can talk about getting the black vote, but to be rather blunt
A
about
lot
it,
of
it,
mortuaries
it
are going to be rated
it's
at vote totals.
it's
Yeah.
not that black people don't vote. Blacks do vote, but it's really the precinct captains that vote because they're the ones that count and rally it up and make sure everyone stays on task. And so then you have all these articles from like the Atlantic with like Savita talking about for every Karen we lose, we get like a Juan or Deshaun, and I'm just like, no, you don't. Like, no, like you maybe in Texas where like the Rio Grande Valley went red in 2020, but like, what are you doing? You need to be focusing on white voters for God's sakes. Like, you need that just by per capita alone. But to get back to the whole news thing here too is that you have this great image, fight, fight, fight. I mean, the shooter wasn't. I don't know if had been killed yet, but I mean, bullets were flying, and people were like standing and ready to rally behind the guy and making sure that he wasn't killed on stage. And that's an incredibly powerful thing. But also because Trump isn't on Twitter outside of the mugshot photo, which really was this like blink and you miss it thing.
Yeah.
Like we even talked about it on the show, and we noted even like a couple of days later after it happened, wow, we thought that was going to have more staying power.
And
I wonder how, and I think that it is different between like, oh, a mugshot versus like, no, someone just tried to kill you. So I think that this image obviously is going to have much more staying power. That photo is finally one of those photos that will be in a history book, because you and I asked that question, I think, to chat and to our guests. I don't know who was on when maybe it was Sandbatch or
I think it was
not.
Sandbatch, yeah.
I think it was Sandy, where we had asked, like, can you name from like now to maybe like 2010, like the most important historical photos? Like, we've become such a more timeline oriented society. Like, the feed is never ending, so we have to keep scrolling. So like photos don't have as much staying power because
There was some good Summer of Love Kino.
Yeah, like, I mean, there's some good
Nothing
Summer of Love
specific.
Kino.
Nothing specific.
Oh,
But,
the
like, you can
burning
kinda,
down of the
like
factory, that was one. Like with the
burning of
cars.
Minneapolis, or some of the statues being toppled, or
Well,
I Can't
Mattress
Breathe.
Girl, that was the one like walking onto the podium with the mattress. That was another one.
Oh yeah, or
the Robert E. Lee statue that Douglas Southwell Freeman used to salute, with a George Floyd head and graffiti superimposed on top
and
of it.
they like caved in the skull.
When Paul Fahrenheit is the governor of Virginia, these people are all going to be, sent
They'll
down
go into a place
the reverse transatlantic, shipping route or something.
When Paul Fahrenheit's the governor.
I believe this.
A man can dream.
No, but there were a few iconic photos, but I think definitely Trump walking down the elevator.
But the reason why is that again, it goes back to that medium aspect, because like if you're a Gen Xer, like, you damn well know that one of those famous photographs of like your entire like childhood is Challenger getting blown up, or that the wall came down,
or that one shot of the planes flying over Kuwait with the oil wells.
Yeah, or even Bill Clinton playing the saxophone on the Arsenio Hall show, right?
Kurt Cobain's leg and arm hanging off from that one photo.
Yeah,
that could be it. Like, that photo of like the upstairs.
Yes.
Yeah, like or will be another iconic photo. Fred Durst at Woodstock crowd surfing. That was on the board. That was another one. They should have had Fred Durst. They should have had Fred Durst at the RNC. They should have gave Kane a speech. They didn't give Kane a speech. That was fucking stupid.
Kane is awesome.
Vince McMahon speaking.
What?
It's Vince McMahon speaking at the convention.
That would have been an amazing event, or at least Dana White.
I know he got a quasi cancellation. He got kicked out of his own organization.
He totally canceled. Yeah.
Dana gave a speech in 2016, I think.
Yeah.
So they probably don't want to.
Yeah,
I don't know.
You should invite Jake Shields up.
Tenrio.
Lord,
invite Tenrio.
They haven't a Swarthoff.
No, but you know what's crazy about Jake Shields? That he actually has a very impressive fighting record. It's incredible. He's actually one of the greats. It's like in his Twitter presence as well. Anyways, let's not. But no, but that would have been funny though if they gave Jake Shields a speech. But so yeah, but the point about iconic photos, like this obviously is like a generation defining photo. Especially with the like I remember like that Hassan Piker tweet. He's like, fuck, it had to have the American flag behind him. It's like, well, nah, no shit. Like it was destined.
Let's
go. Yeah, it was destined in some ways. But I think that going forward, like I say, 5 months is a long time. I'm not going to be like everyone seems to think that Trump winning is inevitability, and by all money, it does look like an inevitability. But just to hedge my bets, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a very hotly contested election, and I wouldn't want to like put my money on Trump just
yeah,
yet.
none of the election law, like after the midterms, all the swing states mostly controlled by Democrats still.
Yeah.
So
None of the laws have changed.
yeah,
Like the greatest failure that the GOP did on the state level after 2020 and in 2022 was not doing anything about that. None of the laws have changed. Sure, there have been some rulings that have said, oh, you know, what the governors did was unconstitutional because they didn't have the legislation behind it. They acted unilaterally, sure, but outside of that, I mean, we just saw that the Wisconsin Supreme Court brought back unsupervised ballot drop boxes. Like nothing changed. So, you know, for as much as we want to talk about how Keno things are, like I do feel the need to splash the real cold water and tell people to wake up and smell the coffee beans is because the things that enabled 2020 to happen are still there. The question is going to be is you know, and this is a point that BAP is very right about. People can like him or hate him, I don't care. But the point that he made was like, what happened to the guys in the 2000 election that were these legal lawfare wizards that, you know, got the count to stop and got the hanging Chad to end, you know? Like, that's what you need. You needed that better in 2020, and you sure as hell need it even better now. Like, I would have taken a million of those, like Jenna, anyone other than Jenna Ellis, you know? But instead, you know, Jenna Ellis is in the situation she's in now, and it's a disaster.
No, but that's what I mean. Like people are saying, like still believing in democracy. Like I think Trump obviously has a huge populist swing going, but if that is sort of irrelevant in the system that actually exists now, I mean, I know.
Oh
this
God,
is like,
Ted Cruz is speaking.
Oh God,
You're
but
not
like I know
missing
this is like
anything.
big bitch elite theory, but like if that populist upsurge is irrelevant, I mean, again, I don't want to blackpill, but like Scott Greer is very perceptive about these things. I believe he said in that post that you talked about, Garak, that he said like people were saying like, what if Trump actually died? Would there be a civil war? He goes, no way. No, it would get worse if it was
It's
very
really sad.
No, but if it was very clear that the election was for you to, how can I say this? If the election was fortified to such a degree that, I mean, would you have like a major anything, or would the vast majority of voters on the Republican side of America, would they just take it and they would just accept like, okay, anything, anything, anything beyond the status quo would be unthinkable. So therefore, it's, you know what I mean? Like it's like in 2020,
There would be another.
it would be more. It would be less. It would be more obvious to most normies if Trump didn't win.
There would be another Reince Priebus style postmortem. Pedro Gonzalez would be saying, "I told you so," because he doesn't really care if the right wins. He just wants Trump to lose, and most people would just accept it.
Yeah.
That's the simple, plain fact of the matter. Like, I don't, because I mean, like Middle American, like the whole Middle American Radical Coalition that Sam Francis wrote about like 50 years ago. It's just like they've been kicked around, spat out, shoot at, shot at, sent their sons to die in how many wars now? Nothing happened. Like,
well, what do you think, Garak? Sorry, I cut you off pretty good.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Well, I mean, yeah, to tie it back to our earlier conversation, it really does kind of hinge on Trump the man. You know, with there's just so many I think, issues with the way the right in America is structured. Like, they've sort of coast by entirely on this one guy's charisma. Like,
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
Pedro Gonzalez really thinks that there's just going to be some magical, like, just DeSantis is going to pull Excalibur from the stone, it's just not a river. I forget how it goes.
A stone.
Yeah, it's just not going to, like. I don't know. It's interesting to debate about it in the context of the RNC, because it is true. Like, the RNC is pretty much run by Trump's daughter now, so he does share some of the blame for how it's conducted. But at the same time, this is the point I made when I was arguing with AA. The whole point is that, like, Trump moves the GOP in the right direction. It's not containment; it's a genuine improvement. And without him, like, things would be worse on every level. It's just all these people who frankly are only red pilled because of the environment that Trump created. I think that's true of a lot of us. Just criticizing him for not living up to what they thought he would be.
Which is a fair
We
criticism.
really think
let's
Pedro
hear it.
Gonzalez is a career if not for Trump? Like, obviously not.
Yeah, no, he'd still be some sort of Bernie bro, or he'd be like the token brown guy on a Chapo Trap House like podcast. But I mean, I think that that to back up your point, Garrick, was that someone, I don't, maybe it was Martin or someone else, but they had shown Trump's 2016 RNC speech, or it was like, you could definitely, or maybe it was even you, Garrick, I could be wrong, but like like his 2016 RNC speech, and it's just like far more radicalizing, or it sounded far more like
It was awesome.
our kind of
It was
awesome.
My favorite Trump speech. Yeah,
It is-
Stephen
it
Miller.
is-
It's
it
like, it
is-
was like went over time.
Go
an hour
watch
long.
that speech if you want to hit nostalgia. It's an hour long. It's like unabashed Steve Miller-esque talking points about the border, about America, and about how we need to like totally shut this country down and fix it from the ground up and just tear like the institutions. It's very chef's kiss. And so like, you can't blame people to hear that and then be like, okay, like, yeah, we are gonna like own the streets now. We are gonna like put the liberals on notice. Like, this is our moment. And then of course that never came to be, because Trump was, I think, radically unprepared to wield the power that he was given.
Yeah, but also I think in defense of Trump, it was like, what was he gonna hire Richard Spencer? Like, he,
No.
at
No,
that
but
time,
see,
he didn't
but
have-
see, that's the problem. Okay, go ahead, Gary. I have a point about that. Yeah.
Yeah, like, at the time, like, who was he supposed to hire? They didn't even think they were gonna win. So, who
They
are you
were
gonna?
Yeah,
The
no,
problem
like,
with the dissident right is
Pe-
that
people
definitely
should
back in
consider the transition period being a lot rougher than they remember in 2016.
Well, back in
to
16, it was
2017.
like, the DR, somewhat true now, but very true then. What the hell do they have to offer? Just all these, like, Matt Heimbach, like, like, what? There's no reason. Like, what's the reason that the people in the Trump camp, even now to an extent, like, why do they have to
Radical
take any of
agenda.
us
What's your
seriously?
agenda?
Why do they have to take any of us seriously? It's not. This is the issue, and Greer talks about this with the sort of withhold the vote, or like, I'm not the 5%er or the Groyper thing now. Like, we're just going to withhold our vote. It's like, no. Actually, it's like 15,000 people at most on a live stream. It's not millions of boomers. Like, in a way, you do have to factor in. Like, why should they even be listening to you?
People do need a more realistic assessment of their actual influence. Like, this is an incredibly niche audience.
But I hate to say it, though. I hate to be a party pooper, but that just doesn't extend to just like the Groypers with Fuentes, but it extends to like the DR as a whole, like the Twitterati DR as well. Because I think like the problem with people getting so, I mean, I know we're getting ahead of ourselves, but like people getting so gassed up with JD Vance because he follows a bunch of like dissident right accounts. I hate to say it. Like, I mean, I know, I hate to say it. I hate to put it this way, to quote Richard Spencer, but I hate to say it, but like, it's similar to the vibe of a lot of people like Richard Spencer in 2016. Like, they genuinely thought that they were going to like staff positions in Washington with Trump. And I think like
There's
a lot
chance of that now. I've been quite bullish on that.
No, but this is what I mean, Garrick, because like a lot of these people that we know, they're like, they think, oh, because JD Vance follows my favorite Twitter account, therefore we're going to get in there and we're going to get positions. It's like, we've been down this road before. I hate, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want a black pill, but I'm more.
This is the same question I posed to Toyle at the OGC conference. I'm like, dude, I've been hurt before.
No, but that's what I mean. Like, I'm still on the fence
get,
with JD Vance. That's my problem. You know, like the Groypers are not entirely wrong about it.
I get your point, but however, out of your alternative? Like, I guess the question would be like, who would you want as your alternative?
Don't ask me that.
No, I
Yeah,
know.
Vance is obviously the best option. That was the problem with the anti-Vance polemic. Was like they would sort of say, "Oh, Vance is a Zionist," as if they all aren't, or
Like, if
he's
you're a
like
Republican in
Well,
Congress, I'm
Massey isn't,
sorry, there's a
though.
photo with you next to the wall.
Massey endorsed DeSantis. There's no way Trump's going to pick him. Like,
Well, yeah, I
it's
guess you're
just
right.
the problem is they never offered they never offered a realistic. It was just like Burgum. Oh, Burgum, this guy who's worse on every issue, but he just kind of looks like
Yeah,
George
Burgum,
Washington.
worse on every issue, but has some Microsoft money.
It's
Like, why
retarded.
would
It's
I?
these people. It's the same with these people who are like gay for Gavin Newsom. It's just like, oh my god, a white guy with like gray hair. I'm gonna fucking like come. It's like, no, you don't. Like, are you that easy? Are you that easy to buy? Like,
He has a white family.
Vance is what he is. He's okay. He was definitely the best option.
I mean, I know, but I just think that I
He's good on Russia. He's good on like
oh yeah,
if
he's
you
definitely
were
good at
ever a
Russia.
zigger,
Yeah, yeah,
you were
yeah.
ever a
They're
zigger, you should definitely support Vance. Like if you
like
that's
all the
just
NAFO
retarded.
people. Yeah, they're all like crying because he's going to cut off Ukraine. He's going to cut off Zelensky. Which honestly, like, if you at this point, like, I know people that are pro-Ukrainian disagree with me, but if you really care about Eastern European men dying, if you really care about stopping that, then forcing Zelensky to go to the negotiating table is the most sanest and best option. I will always say that, and you could call
Yeah,
me a
and Vance would
Vatnik or
do that.
whatever.
Like he's voted that way
Yeah,
in Congress. He's like totally a zigger. Like that's kind of you know
I know there was
that's
this
kind of
one
the selling
journalist
point.
who said like he was connected to that guy that was throwing money at like pro-Russian people on the DR. I don't know if that's true or not, but like
Who?
that Bauman guy,
Oh, I'm not sure. Well,
he was
there's
like
a
a
lot of
Russian.
Russian influence is real, but I feel like
Yeah,
Russian influence is like it's like
Jackson
allegedly
Hinkle.
But even on the right, like Nick Griffin, or in Australia, like Russian Cossack people who like no one watch.
Right,
I don't
right.
know.
No,
Or
There
but
like
is
they were
the blue,
alleging
like
that
the
like they were.
blue moon or Georgia. Like, there is actual Russian influence stuff that happens. Like, it happens a lot in the South. A lot of people uses like the churches to do it. Like
Rokor?
even
Yeah.
some of that Texas stuff happens, has some alleged links to like Russian money and sources. Like, that stuff is real. However, even if you are, say, anti-regime, you should not be selling out to other countries at all. Like, that just tells me that you're a mercenary or
I
anything
don't know,
like that.
Prude. I really hate Justin Trudeau and Chrystia Freeland. So
Okay, but do you like love Canada? Do you love your people? Like, I feel like there's
yeah,
a very
but
fine line to walk. Like, one of the reasons, and this is something that Garak had pointed out to me, is like, I think it's interesting when you have
are
these.
you accusing me, Prude, of being a
No, I'm not.
Z-icker?
I'm not. I know your position, but I don't think you're a traitor to your country or your people.
No,
My
no, I
point.
no,
My
I think
point.
I believe in geopolitical sanity when it comes to the Ukraine war.
But
I'm not
yeah,
exactly pro China or pro BRICS. I think that I make an exception for Russia because Russia, to me, is a European country that's destiny has always been linked to continental Europe. But that's besides the point. Go ahead, Prude. Let's go.
well,
ahead.
I'm more on. I guess I'm more of a to Tocqueville kind of guy, where it's just like the great game is going to be played between Russia and the United States. I
Yeah,
guess that I see that game coming on. I just there's something that Garrick had pointed out to me is was it like Luc Francois who had talked about, like,
Let's
you know,
go.
we find some of these guys, like, we find like the reason why, like, these J. Arthur Bloom types, like, they're awful shitty human beings and they're doxers and stuff, but like, it is important to talk about like the criminals in your own like camp, like, because clearly there are some really shitty characters in here, like, and there are
yeah.
people that are very much probably bought off or have close ties to people or had conversations with individuals that would be probably enemies of your own future
And you
base
should
world
raise
state.
that Vance. Like it's important to have a sort of clear pill view of Vance. Like, yeah, he's NACON aligned, he's Teal aligned. We should
He
talk
is a
about all of
Silicon
this.
Valley creature. Yeah.
Absolutely. I just think that's preferable to like just more normie cons. I think like at least let's change up the controlled opposition. I think it's more interesting. He's not gonna make Nick Fuentes the vice president. Like
No, he's not going to be BAP the vice president either. Like, you know what I
He's not
mean?
gonna be
Like,
a
that's
press
the thing.
secretary or anything like that. But but the question's gonna be like, is this is always like the shitty problem is that, again, we're all just on here in a very niche sector of politics with a vast amount of host scaring literature that's read between all three of us, and are we that close to power? No, not really. Like, can we have some influence? Absolutely. I think it's kind
No,
of
but they'll
cool
give
to
you the illusion of being close to power.
Yeah, that's sort of like
that
the
is
whole,
pretty dangerous.
and that's the Delusian control society thing. Like, it's going to give you the illusion that you have power, that you're actually in control.
Because
of things,
JD Vance follows our favorite Twitter accounts.
Or
therefore,
favorite frogs are being followed. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Ben Braddock's talking about
no,
putting a
that's
Hindu
what I
symbol
mean.
of peace. I get what you're saying. I do agree with that. Like, there is
realist about these things.
You have to be. I do agree, but also, like, is this not an improvement from, say, fucking Mitt Romney?
Oh, but that's the lowest of the low.
But it's a valid question.
Doug Burgum is better than Mitt Romney,
not by much.
Well,
not by much.
As a side note, just really quickly to address Tedneck, who's a-logging us in the chat. I'm not pro. Okay, for those of you, if any fucking Canadian Antifa is listening to this, I'm not pro Canadian. I do not want Canada to be annexed, especially if it's annexed by a libtard version of America. I think that there could be a way forward.
I don't want libtard America to annex Canada.
No. I like my good friend Horace Finkelstein brought up a great point about that. If you would have an annexation of Canada, we would basically turn into like a weirdo Potemkin village. Like we would turn into like what Poland was during World War II. So I think like it's a joke. It's a joke. I think that there could be a different path for Canada in terms of a genuine form of Canadian nationalism. I don't think that it may be realized in our lifetimes. And it's all predicated on the absolute defeat politically of the Liberal Party, which is not going. I'm still skeptical of. I mean, maybe I'll bring on another Canadian on Content Minded to talk about this, or even on DL. Sorry, DL. Why did I say DL? DA. DL. We're DA.
This is DA.
No, that's what I mean. Like why did I say DL? Download brother. I don't know.
Got something you want to admit on air to all 700 plus people listening?
No, I'm not a DL brother. No, I'm just saying. I don't know. I got Freudian slip. I think. Oh, you know why I said DL? Because I think in his chat in a group chat, people like we're talking about the PrEP thing and like why there's such a huge AIDS rate in Africa, and that's for different. Anyways, let's move on. So apparently there's a lot of DL brothers in sub-Saharan Africa. But anyways.
I couldn't be surprised at all. Well, also they have terrible practices of, drying and all that other stuff.
Obviously they're all trad Catholics and they're just waiting to get to America and vote for Donald Trump.
Donald Trump. Yeah.
Adrian Vermeule told me this, man. They're gonna,
I cannot wait for the empire of Our Lady of Guadalupe to just like reign supreme. Like, yeah, I'm so excited. I'm ready to just scream.
Well, no, but
and again, that's also another critique I would love to throw towards JD Vance. It's just like, yeah, like you're sort of like the closest thing to the post liberals, a la Patrick Deneen, Sora Bamari, and Adrian Vermeule do to being in the White House. Like, we're one shitty Cinco de Mayo taco bowl from Trump Tower from, Adrian Vermeule's ideology from like kind of being part of like the White House apparatus at POTUS. And that's a terrifying concept because it's just like, I really don't want that. However,
maybe, but I also think like they've conclusively lost the battle of ideas on Twitter, as much as that counts for anything. And I think the downstream of that is like, I think online LARP tradcap stuff has kind of reached its apex.
It's over.
The Amarnosphere happened. You can't.
No, but
they came, they saw, they conquered. Like that is true. Because I mean, whenever you see, because like when you see Sora Bamari now out in public, what are you exposed to? You're not really seeing someone who like really expresses anything that I would see that resembles traditional Catholicism. I just see a guy that really wants to be a communist, but he's
Nigel Carlsbad won.
He's got to max it.
We're living in Nigel Carlsbad's universe, yeah.
Oh, I mean, in a lot of ways, he won. Like, let's not kid ourselves. But also,
I think there's excesses of like the newer style of like those like I think like they do lack
pleasure of listening to that man talk. And what I can tell you is that it is basically Cesar Chavez style, like workers' communism, but with like a little bit of like quoting that one passage from St. James's epistle about like woe to the rich man. And that's literally what he prefaces his book with in Tyranny Inc. is that phrase from James about the wealthy. And again, he just sort of uses the, catechism of the Roman Catholic Church to sort of just like espouse his own like batshit commie ideas. And again,
Right.
like and I've read the book and like I reviewed it. Like it's in a publication. You can go read it if you want. And just the point is that like that side of things is like, well, this what does common good conservatism even mean if like your idea of the common good is just like, well, a cajillion more immigrants is fine, or basically doing what Elizabeth Warren wants is like the way to go forward. And I just refuse to acknowledge that has anything to the common good of myself.
Well, I think like the whole like from the Amarnosphere secular right, or whatever you want to call it, the eugenic Nietzschean right. Like I think like yeah, like that stuff can go like a certain way towards like, I mean, I'm no fan of any sort of like secularism, but they do provide like a necessary critique of a lot of like the excesses of like a lot of shithead trad type of thinking. But I do think like, you have a lot of posters like my good friend and Julius who are very deep, very well acquainted with theology. And I think like that's, that like I look at people like him, Contrary Pancake, you, Garak, other people, to Rodin. Although I mean Rodin has this a bit of contrarianism. Who else am I thinking of? Like I'm looking at people like pure posters. Torch the Earth and Torch the Earth Graper.
Yes.
Like I'm talking pure posters that sort of defy a lot of the like milieu of whatever like subgroup in the Twitterati e-right is there, because they focus on the originality of their ideas and their posting abilities. And I really appreciate that, and there are guys who are of that sphere who are more metaphysically minded, like in Julius. And because like you're right, like the whole like tradcath, even trad orthodox thing, I think they've seen better days. But to go back to the JD Vance thing, I do like, I understand like we've been doing quips about the grapers and blah blah blah, and I know like their presentations can be over the top and ridiculous, and they hyper focus on one particular issue. But I do think that the criticisms of what does it mean to have someone who does have the Silicon Valley technocrat ideal, especially when it comes to immigration, especially when it comes to the vision of the right wing going forward. I do think that there is some concerns there. Now, is JD Vance probably a better pick? I mean, is he the best pick compared to like what the other like refuse the Republican Party
Scott.
has? Yeah, Tim Scott. Yeah,
Tim Scott
yeah.
got a beard for nothing.
Talk about a down low brother. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah. But I do think that there's some serious concerns, and like if we stopped with like the faction warring all the time, because as we know, like a lot of like people that are like on a certain particular side of the DR on the Twitter right, they love Vance. Vance is their guy. Vance follows them. He's going to like lead America forward. But then there are other people that, given their ostentatious presentation, they still do bring up like some valid criticisms of like, okay, the Thiel network, the Thiel Horowitz and Dreisen network is basically funneling him money. He's their friend. People like King Pilled have been more right than they've been wrong when it comes to the Thiel network. And I think that there are some serious criticisms there. And like even before the show, Prude, maybe I wanted to get Garak's take on this, but you were saying, Prude, about that there's a rival elite vision as opposed to a separate elite in the Republican Party.
Let me, because again, I actually share all those criticisms, and my concerns there are very much there. So I know this paper was written by like two commies, but like the Californian ideology, I think it's like by Richard Barnbrook and some other guy back in '95, was describing a sort of like economic political faction that was quasi laissez-faire, but would also
libertarian,
like quasi libertarian, but would like run to daddy government and tell Uncle Sam to like kick the meanies out, i.e., like other national economic interests from interfering in their sandbox, so they don't have to worry about competition or anything like that. So like they're like laissez-faire, but also I'm on the teat. And at the same time, like there's this like cultural dynamism to them that is very much this like spirit of like the global village, but also techno capital. And we're going to sort of just embrace this sort of like hedonistic,
They all take psychedelics.
non-religious sort of like, or at least non like for traditional like
Traditional
religion in
religion,
America.
yeah. They have
And
like new. They go to the Eastland Institute.
Sure,
They listen to Terrence McKenna.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let me go on. And
Sorry,
so
sorry.
as you read this thing, you kind of like, and you start talking about like, oh man, but of course, like these guys are communists, so they're talking about like capital, and they're talking about like slavery, and they love like, of course they have the reiteration of like American like racial slavery and chattel slavery. They have like their own brown slaves, and you kind of see that today with like H-1B visas. Because again, Andreessen and Horowitz, like they were pro Hillary Clinton in 2016 on the subject of immigration alone, because Trump was an immigration restrictionist, at least on paper. I mean,
yeah,
he did.
And Andreessen worked with Obama, and obviously the left loved Elon because he was all
Yeah,
about green
and the
power.
and the left wing loved Elon until Elon
Twitter.
felt like enough was enough, and his bottom line was getting fucked with. And this is the thing that like Barnbrook and them are writing about in '95, and I'm seeing like the modern day iteration of that today with say like this Teal network, or like these Silicon Valley, the PayPal mafia types, where all of a sudden you're witnessing a very wealthy, influential group of people that work in media, venture capital, technologies, aerospace, engineering, and virtually sort of all the key factors of government, finance, and the rest, that are witnessing that their ability to live is being attacked, which means
a lot of military contracts in between them too.
Well, I mean, also like consider like how awkward does it have to be for Elon Musk, like a guy who by law with defense contracts is not supposed to hire asylum seekers or non-citizens because he has contracts with the DoD and specific projects, but he's being sued by the Biden administration's Justice Department because he's not hiring non-citizens, refugees, and asylum seekers, and that's racist. And the DOJ Civil Rights Division is going after him. That's insane, right? If you're a logical guy who thinks about business and thinks about how the world works on a macro scale, that's insane. And that makes no sense. That's the quote unquote woke mind virus or whatever, right? Not saying, and so what I think that like absolutely there are some serious concerns about that network, because again, it's not like they're going to really represent like the rest of the country particularly well. They don't really share my values. They're kind of chuds. They're going to kind of come in, and then this kind of goes back to whole Yarvin's Dark Elves bullshit. But like again, like these kind of are your Dark Elves that you're talking about, where we want to run things. We're going to do things a little bit better than these guys. You're going to learn to like us. We can't relate to you. You can't relate to us. But this is the arrangement that we're trying to make. And yeah, like JD Vance is heavily connected to that. He worked for, I mean, he was not only worked for Teal, he did his own venture capital stuff. He was an attorney. And of course, he served in the Marine Corps. Like, he does have, like, on paper, a great record, but also a lot of connections that would make you want to raise eyebrows. Because it's like, well, Peter Thiel does have massive intelligence connections, not only to, like, the current American, like, intelligence community, but also just, like, in terms of, like, raw global data. Like, that's an insane thing to consider, that perhaps actually maybe there is reasons to be concerned that these guys don't have your best interests at heart. And those are very valid criticisms. But then again, at the same time, it's just like, well, what are these guys really getting upset about? Well, they're getting upset about the fact that they can't do their own fucking business. They're leaving California, and Elon lost a son or child to trannydom. Like, yeah, I kind of want to see why he wants to burn the house down. And
well, he left. Now he's in Texas now.
Yes, I know. And Texas is going to.
It's very Rubin. It's very Dave Rubin. I think that's there.
It is very Dave Rubin. It's like, well, the left left me on just with billions, hundreds of billions of dollars to spend. And that's sort of an insane thing to think about. Like, oh, the Babylon Bee was banned from Twitter. I'm buying Twitter. This shit has gone the left have gone too far for me now. And the left has left Elon, and here we are.
Yeah, we should be clear-pilled about their agenda. But ultimately, I do think it's a good thing. Like, it is good to get $45 million a month. It is good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no,
the problem
I
with
just think it's important to be very... they're not your friends, but also, like, is it better than more gay race communism? Yes.
It just shakes things up. It's the same logic with Trump. I mean, Thomas 777 likes Trump, okay, and you can't impeach his pro-Russia, pro-Palestine credibility.
Right.
His point is just like, even if he does nothing, the point his presence alone destabilizes the regime. And it's the same with people like that. It's the same with, this sort of civil war between the sort of Dave Rubin, like, all-in podcast, elite, and proper, like, GNC. Like, it has to be a good thing. It's the same with Israel. Luc Francois in Jack Hughes, his line is that since Obama, the relationship between Israel and the American left has just been this enjoyable Schadenfreude, just this total civil war. And, like, you should encourage people you should encourage your political enemies to just fight each other.
Yeah, true.
And that's what it represents. And I do think, like, actually, I might be a bit biased. These might be the circles I run in, but that's sort of like Dave Rubin-ish, like venture capital, like apolitical. Like I have family members who listen to the All In podcast, and I think like if they're going to Trump, they could bring people like that with them. That's the real way you win back like rich white suburbanites. It's not through like Mitt Romney or it is pretty much going to be this like ooh Elon Musk is into Trump. It's like the detoxification of Trump, as Scott Greer calls it. That's really how you win them back, I think. Like they do, like the Silicon Valley realignment. I don't know how it's going to shake out electorally, but it does. It's a real demographic. The sort of like
Hmm.
I don't want to say barstool conservative because they're a bit more cashed up, but I think it should you should be clear pilled. You should know that Vance is chief of staff, is a take the fun guy, etc. These are all important things to point out. And I'm actually happy that the Groip, in a sense that the Groipers have gone total war and they're willing to call it out. The only issue I have with them is they feel like oh, just because it's like Talmudic scheming. Talmudic scheming doesn't always work out. Sometimes they really fuck up, and
Oh
when I
yeah,
look
I mean,
at them now, I see desperation.
I think October 7th was a huge fuck up in my opinion. Like I think their response
Israel's
was,
over. Israel is like,
yeah,
I was at a friend's house like a couple weeks ago, and someone in our circle was talking about how she wouldn't go out with this guy because he was in the IDF. Like it has no credibility,
yeah,
among
exactly,
young people.
yeah,
It's pretty like regardless of like the short term, I don't think Trump is going to go into Iran. He had many opportunities to do so and didn't. I think he's, in his heart of hearts, he wants to just be out of the Middle East. He is a Zionist, but he doesn't want to, do
yeah.
their bidding. He's a deal maker. This was Fuentes'
Yeah.
position until recently, which he was right to raise. So the idea that there really needs to be the two articles I need to write are it's quantifying election fraud and quantifying Jewish power because everyone appeals to these concepts, but what does it look like in reality? It's not Dominion machines, it's the Clyburn machine, and it's not it's not necessarily I mean Zog has a lot of polemical value. I like it. It's kitschy. It's 1990s. It's cool. It's still edgy. Elon censors you if you say it. But it is kind of is a defining characteristic of the regime Zionism, not necessarily anymore. So that needs to be hammered out.
Yeah, but people are entirely too unnuanced to like really hear that argument. Like, because I
That's
think
why
like,
I like Roden. That's why I like Roden. He is pure TRS autism, carved through the Eric Prince shills.
No, but that's what I mean. Like, I think that there is an argument to be made that like, if there is huge parts of the dissident right that either ignore it or like they are implicitly like, well, I guess Israel's based because they're owning brown people. Like, it's not to say like you could be totally like I've said this before. You can't be like a total Palestine shell because that leads into like all sorts of contradictions. But at the same time, like to not point out like what's obviously going on there, it's like, ugh. Like, I don't want to see all those. I don't want to see children buried under rubble. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, I just think that a lot of people have like lost their minds because of faction wars. And I think that in a moment where we should basically come together and say, like, okay, Trump is obviously better in office than former years of the Democrats, or even like in the rest of the Western world, if there is like a huge right wing wave, that you can't like really make perfect the enemy of the good. Because even that vision of perfect,
he's created so many opportunities
yeah,
for people. Like I think it's total ingratitude. Like without him, it would basically still be like it would basically still be like
we would have
the
gone to
H.L.
war with
Mencken
Russia by now.
society, or you'd be
Yeah.
at war with Russia. You'd have like Me Too under Hillary. Are you kidding me? Like
Oh my God, yeah.
There would have been
Court would be
a special
totally different.
division of the DOJ for that under Hillary. Like, let's not get ourselves like Me Too.
Yeah, the
would have
Supreme
been totally
Court,
weaponized.
like all these pro-life people, like you've got like your 50 years, you've got your biggest victory in like decades, and there's just like an ingratitude that, and it's fine with being demanding, but you could only be demanding if you have a form of leverage, and
Yeah.
like pro-lifers increasingly don't have it. They keep losing these elections, and the DR kind of never had it. Like the DR's influence, Scott Greer says, it's exercised through journalists who are on Twitter and plagiarize our stuff essentially.
Yeah.
And in order for them to pay attention, you sort of have to frame yourself as like, oh, I like Trump. I just want him to improve in such and such way. If you say, oh, I'm not voting for him, fuck him, he's just a Zio shill, It's like they're just not going to listen to you. Why would they listen to you? What credibility? Like,
well, that was Nightmare Vision's point not too long ago, where he's like, "Well, you guys have been calling these people like total, for lack of
Stuff we can't say on YouTube.
bike slaves for like the last 8 years. Of course, they're going to take your stuff and run with it. Like, absolutely, like that's totally true, and we've already witnessed that. Because I mean, virtually everything that people were griping Charlie Kirk about, like 8 years ago, like, well, now Charlie Kirk's talking about that still on his slightly watered down TPUSA style. Like, that's absolutely true. And I think and then I wrote an essay like, so you want to talk to frogs, and it was more or less me just saying, like, if you're going to talk to these people, understand that we hate you, we want your job, and we would love to take your place, but we also recognize that it's probably not going to happen. And if you can take our points and run with them, like, please do, and that would be great. But also at the same time, like, I also recognize that, like, I don't know if you're ever going to get that unity though, Gio, because, like, let's not kid ourselves. Like, things are incredibly fat that you never will.
The incentives are against it. Like flame wars, like people love this shit. Like,
and in a way, because you've set up like one faction you're saying is being run by a gay Jewish subverter, and the other side says the other is run by like a brown kid, disrespectful kid. So it's like
also gay.
Yeah, also gay. So it's like you're never going to have unity, but I do think that there will be. No, I don't want to my own horn, but there will be, I think, after this year, after maybe a few years down the line, there will be a lot of people kind of like the three of us, or like people that we know that are like, you know what, this is bullshit. And nothing's going to get done if we keep bickering. I mean, I know the flame wars and the internet blood sports and like, Ethan Ralph kill stream style debates where people yell expletives at each other is very entertaining. And I've certainly watched hours upon hours of drama and Kino and Nectar, Kino Dogme 2016. But at the end of the day, I think there will be people on the dissident right, or on the E-right, as I like to call it, who are going to say, like, listen, this is bullshit, because like everyone wants to vie for some kind of like position, or they want to become like a journalist, or they want to do some kind of like think tank. But if those things don't materialize, a lot of people are going to be upset, and they're going to be like, listen, what are we doing? Like,
a lot of it is because we're close. I mean, the white pill buried in it is that the intensity of the fights is because we're close to power. Everyone's fighting because they know they want to be the guy at Trump's ear. They want to be Vance. They want to Sharkum
the rest of them.
They
want to be like Steve Bannon. Like, that's what they want. People want
like
to be the guy that gets the.
Or they want to be like Stephen Miller. Yeah.
Yeah.
The paleo neocon split, like before, the idea that these are two distinct camps doesn't even exist until the Reagan administration, when they had to start fighting for jobs. And that's why they're so bitter about the Mel Bradford thing, is because they didn't get, government jobs. Like, it's going to be very much a repeat of that.
No, but that's what I mean, Garak. Like, it will be a repeat of that, but I do think that there will be, for lack of a better term, like a third way that's going to be led by people.
Thomas 777, the peacemaker.
Yeah, I'm up there with him, man. Like, it's just like I think
ideologically he's way closer to Fuentes than he is to BAP. Like, they're both sort of religious, they're both pro-Palestine. But
come to think of it, I'm actually closer ideologically to Fuentes than BAP, if you really
you are.
Yeah, for sure.
No, but that's what I mean. Like, I think that it's just because I came up in the doldrums of neo-reaction and like all those like, publications like Thermidor. And I think like that's where I got slotted where I did, because I managed to like avoid some of the like the backtrack of like the alt-right and all that. But at the same time, I do think that I don't know. Do you guys really monitor people that are like left-wing Antifa adjacent journalists, like that one ugly woman, the other ugly woman with the glasses, and the guy, the fucking Australian asshole in The Guardian? Like, if you actually monitor what they're saying about this VP pick, like, they believe that Curtis Yarvin and Peter Thiel are going to descend from the... Yeah, like, no, but that's what I mean. Like, him and Hannah Gase, like, they believe that Peter Thiel and Curtis Yarvin with JD Vance are going to descend from the mountains like the pale horse, and they're going to like put all by POC people in camps or whatever.
When
they're
Baby
gonna
Vivek arrived on the Potomac, the first to slaughter 6 million civil servants, first thing he said was Dark Elf.
No, but that's what I mean. Like, they actually get and they're funded by Russia, and which is a very crazy, because like there's a huge segment of the DR that's like pro-Ukrainian, right? So, but they believe that they're all funded by Russia, that they're all being led by the hand into like neo-feudal fascism that has a Silicon Valley bent, that they're going to like get rid of all the they thems in Silicon Valley or some crap. Like, they actually genuinely believe this shit. But you see the rhetoric on the political right, and maybe some of them that are a little bit more intelligent than the rest of them. And I will give people like that one woman a little bit of credence, because they kind of do monitor the intra-scene fighting between people in the DR. But I think that they have a very like that fucking Yates Sexton guy, that Hicklib piece of shit. That you saw the thread today where he's like, JD Vance, the fascist, need to turn, blah, blah, blah. And he was the guy that wrote that thread about how Randy Weaver's family and all the children at Waco basically deserved it. He's that same like Hicklib fucking piece of shit, right? But if you see what they're saying, the rhetoric of where they place the emphasis, and they take things like that list of all of the DR people that JD Vance follows. Now, JD Vance does follow leftist people. I believe he even follows the fucking little guy, if I recall, and Chunk Yu-Gi-Oh! But they take things like that and they concoct this narrative that the DR is definitely going to be in power. That every civil servant's going to read Bronze Age mindset, and they're all going to take Russian money, and they're gonna like, Putler is going to be there. Like, this is the world that they believe in, the Antifa adjacent journalists. And I think like those are the people you have to monitor, because those are the ones that create the opinion among the leftist core. And if they have this idea about JD Vance, then what am I trying to say?
Did we not
save
see
me,
this,
guys? Save me.
Did
You guys
did we not see the same thing though? Once Trump got elected,
Oh
or
yeah,
even before Trump got elected. Like, I mean, also like with the data in society thing, with like the adpocalypse on YouTube. Like, even if you did it's not like Sargon and fucking like Six Hexenhammer have a lot in common, but like they were like linked together and they were all called alt-right. Like, you go back to the data in society thing, even Semyagok is listed on that list. And that's what killed his channel growth.
Really?
Like, yeah. Like, he'll tell you up front, he's in that list, and you can find it and look it up. And like, his channel was probably smaller than mine when it happened, and his growth has been significantly hammered by it ever since, but he's still on here. And the thing to also really consider is like, yeah, those things are going to happen. There will be lists, there will be names, there will be doxing, especially if they somehow manage to get into the White House, right? Like, it's going to be a lot like 2017, 2018 again. The question is going to be, can there be enough people to sort of step over factionalization and kind of do what's necessary to say, listen, there's some serious concerns. These people are obviously a problem. Is there what should we or what can we do about it? Like, those plans should be made now ahead of time, especially if Biden wins or whatever like power is going to be in there, because they will go balls to the wall on the intelligence community.
They'll try to go snacky on a lot of Twitter posters. In my opinion,
I think an important lesson is that a lot of these doxing ops and so much of it relies on the complicity of mainstream conservative institutions.
Yeah, true.
That's why some people have been able to be rehabilitated and let back in. That's why Blake Neff works for Charlie Kirk now, etc. But if you don't have that connection to the conservative movement, if they aren't willing to bat for you, you're kind of fucked.
No, but that's what I mean, Garrett.
I'm encouraged by Ricky Vaughn. I'm encouraged by that, because that's basically,
that is a good sign. And again, it really does go down to how do you take it. It goes down to how do you take it, because I mean, I'll play devil's advocate. I don't even think it's devil's advocate. I think it really does suck that the Trump camp leaked Pedro Gonzalez's DMs. Like, that was really shitty.
Yeah, that was shitty.
Yeah, that was shitty. That was
as much as Pedro's annoying. That is.
Well, no, and I mean, I kind of understand why Pedro wants Trump to lose. Like, that camp just released his text messages and then basically made him got Yoram Herzoni, right? Like the big Jewish head of NatCon, to saying his apology on anti-Semitism wasn't enough. And I'm sorry, you can get canceled by the left these days and kind of do well for yourself, but if you get kicked out by the arch, Israeli Jewish Judeo-Christian Zionist project, it's kind of over for you in a lot of ways to be rehabbed. And he doesn't officially work for Chronicles anymore, and so it's that really sucks. That's really
only blocked me, so I'm not going to NatCon anytime soon.
Same.
Unfortunately,
I'm not blocked by him yet, which is funny.
His son follows me, I think. This is how we win.
I think I'm blocked by his son, but not the father, which is funny. But I mean, that.
Can you put in a good word with the son? I mean, never mind. I shouldn't say that in
maybe
public,
ask Oren instead.
I'm not.
Yeah, I don't know. I only have so much influence.
Like, go ask the guy who spoke there, not me.
I'll ask Alex.
Oh, did Oren speak there?
Yeah, Oren did speak there.
Yeah.
I
shouldn't bash Fazoni too hard then if Oren's.
There's a lot. I mean, I guess there's a lot going on at the Blaze.
Well, apparently, like Antifa, like there's that one like they're always after Lauren Chen because Lauren Chen ends up like having like white nationalists on her show. So like.
Well, hasn't Lauren Chen just flat out said like the 19th Amendment was a mistake and that the purpose
that's relatively tame. I feel like that's
that's
a mainstream tame point.
Tame, but also like I think she's also made posts where she's just like flat out said like I'm not anti-Jewish, I'm just anti-Judaism. Like I mean like she's very
Keith Woods on the Blaze. That's pretty amazing. I gotta say.
Well,
from what I understand, they can kind of, do
they had E. Michael Jones on some black guys program. Like, come on,
that was great. That was Kino.
That was
Kino. Yeah.
It was Kino.
Well, it's just the firewall between sort of center right and I don't know. Just the right wing.
But that's why Antifa they're hammering the Blaze so hard because like Oren had James Kirkpatrick on, and I think that that's why they're hammering them so hard.
Such a huge W, though.
Yeah, that is.
If you're a normie, like okay, consider, and this is something that Thomas brings up all the time.
Listening to Oren and you see this clean-cut guy making a lot of sense about Trump, you're not going to say that he's an evil white supremacist. You're going to be like, that guy doesn't look too bad. Like
and I mean, this is the thing that Thomas brings up is like, okay, like 30, 40 years ago when it's mainly like early blogs and Usenet and direct mailer newsletters. If you had a mailing list of 1,000 people, you were the niche, internet celebrity, right? Of like these like far right spaces. Like if you were like close with like Willis Carto and you were doing these things, like you were king shit of shit mountain, right? Like that was you made it, right? In terms of your ideology and your beliefs getting into out there. Now you can amplify those same ideas that like Sam Francis and everyone was trying to do to millions of people. Like if you're I hate maybe that's a caveat or a silver lining or it's too little too late, but I think that is still a huge improvement from just by technology alone. But now I guess this goes back to the question of like off ramps because both Trump has talked about unity and everyone's trying to dial down the rhetoric, although that's not true because it's not happening.
No, not happening.
It's not happening. I mean, hell, I just saw the clip today of MSNBC, like Mika Brzezinski and Joe Scarborough basically saying, like, you ever pull that shit again, we're just gonna, I'm done. I'm quitting. And it's just like, well, one of you is the daughter of a national security advisor and a huge Cold Warrior, and then the other one of you is a former congressman, right?
The guy that tried to make the world into his image. Literally,
yeah. So, and
Brzezinski, Brzezinski.
Yeah. And so it's just like they were ready to Fed post, and it's just like on national television. It was like great. It was like really sweet keynote to watch, like libtard tears. But also, it's not gonna this isn't gonna escalate. And I already said this on my sort of hot take after the assassination attempt was just like someone's gonna try again. Like let's not kid ourselves. There will be another attempt, and the rhetoric's not gonna stop. Like. When you live in a society where anti-fascism is the political theology of the post-war order for America, it's just like when the New Republic's front page cover has him with a Hitler mustache. Like, come on, someone's gonna read that and to say, oh, yes, Mr. So and so Soylenial, I will do what needs to be done, and I think that's inevitable. The off ramp is going to be, I think, either this sort of resigning that like, oh, Trump is going to get into office, we'll let him be, and we'll treat it like Trump's first term, or
we totally contain him.
They'll try. I mean, I think that there'll be a lot more lawfare, and some more Supreme Court justice picks. But until then, I just don't know. Like, I'm not good with predictions. I don't hedge my bets. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't have the gift of prophecy. What I can simply say is that based on like the last 8 crazy years and also just being observant of politics since I was a kid, I just think that the off ramp for a lot of people is going to be these sort of warring factions that some of it's very public, some of it's very private that we don't know fully about.
Yeah.
And also I think it's the main reason why we don't know fully about is that we haven't taken the time to map these things. No. And again, this goes back to the Luc Francois point about like these J. Arthur Bloom types that, like they actually have maps. They're just also huge libtards sometimes, because they think that the idea of like fighting these like foreign influences also means being like pro-gay marriage
His specific line was they talk about the criminal networks
yeah.
behind the post-war order, but they do it in defense of the ethics of that order. It's like no,
Yeah.
these something like that. But it was
Yeah,
good. It
which
was
is
a very
awful.
insightful.
Which is awful. Like I don't like the ethics of this order, but also I don't have to like accept like like Dugan money, right? Like I think that that's very straightforward. And in the same way, I shouldn't accept Chinese
Can't
money.
anyone pay me? Can't anyone pay? Listen, if you know somebody in the no, I'm not going to make that stupid joke. I made that stupid joke so many times.
Yeah, let's not use that getting
Yeah.
clipped by Canadian. Like let's be a little smarter about it.
You get a knock on your door.
I don't
you
want
get an email.
CSIS to think that I'm taking Kremlin money.
Well, and I mean, like just early. Like, I mean, not to mention like
America, Gio.
Well, I mean, just say you're a member
yeah.
of Parliament, Gio. Like that. Apparently, that's totally fine.
Yeah, but I have to take money from India if I'm a member of Parliament.
Or Ukraine.
I guess I could take money from Modi. I wouldn't. No, but see, it's not even Modi. It's a Sikh lobby. It's not even that. You know what I could do? I could have like a counter.
You
like,
can take Harmeet
Hindu...
Dillon's money. It's okay.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. I could take Modi money. I could be like, I could start reading Kumaraswamy again. And
you can be a Hindu nationalist until you get assassinated outside of Toronto.
Yeah, some Sikh from Brampton's gonna come all the way here to the falls just to like clip me. Oh my god.
I feel like we've unfortunately willed something into existence.
Oh man. I think my defense would be listen, guys, listen. I think you should both go. What were we gonna say, Garak?
A hyperstition of Gio's Hindu nationalist arc. That could be more interesting than the Russia thing. I think you could, start putting some Evola in there, talk about tantrism.
Yeah, there you go. I could resurrect all my New Age stuff.
Based Orientalism. We're bringing that back. Me and Pokehead. We're gonna somewhat self-serving, but
Kolbra is also apparently Kolbra was a Sufi. Is a Sufi.
There's a great book that says Evola was probably a Sufi.
Which one?
Frank Jelly. It's the Sufi of Rome. Keith Woods did a review of it. It's basically just
interesting.
It's basically just this weird Anglican guy hangs out with Evola for 400 pages and just has all these stories. It's really keynote. It's just like what was it like to like be in Evola's social circle in the last 20 years of his life?
What's this?
You'd
book
love it.
called?
You'd love it. The Sufi of Rome.
I have to get this.
There you go.
It's just cozy. It's like cozy Evola.
It's on Amazon still. They haven't clipped it, so
it's on LibGen.
You can get a lot for. There's a lot of books that you think are banned that aren't.
Like I bought a lot of like semi-banned books on Amazon. Oh my god, that's crazy having a bro down with
the Yoga of Power recently.
Apparently Architos is publishing another book by Evola called Pagan Nationalism.
Pagan Imperialism.
Pagan Imperialism. I got to buy that. I think certain someone in my life would really like it. But anyways, but I think the Hindu thing could be my new angle.
Tonight has been better though for the coverage of the convention. It's been like Ted Cruz. It's been, I think like Tom Cotton, Nikki Haley has been speaking.
The white man is back in a big way.
White man's back, baby.
Yeah. So Tom Cotton from Arkansas is speaking now.
But it is crazy how many Hindus.
I think he's like the avatar of like what's left of like military adventurism. He's just like, but I also like him just because was it Tom Cotton that wrote the New York Times op-ed that was just like
it was
send in the troops just behead BLM protesters, roundhouse kick.
There's some weird shit going on with him because I think he was Crystal's protege, but also Bannon really likes him because he's like a hawk. But
he's a China hawk, but he's also just like I want to like point the bayonet at like libs, and it's like I want to recreate
modern day Jesse Helms.
Yeah.
No, because Tom Cotton believes the libs are being funded by China. That's his belief. So he's like, the way to get rid of China is to like eat the libs.
There's probably some truth to that, but also until
I love China Hawks. I trans heart China Hawks. That's my story. That's my ideology.
I NATO heart Elbridge Colby, but like actually Elbridge Colby is like a one-man lobbying machine. I quite like him a lot, but there's something
specific faction Bab Talks. That's another interest group. I mean, it's just important to discuss these things openly and honestly.
Yeah.
But also, like some cooperation is possible. Like some, Havara agreement of sorts. Like it's just you can be a streamer and you can just a log people, or you can be a
Yeah.
political operator. And actually, I'm not saying that everyone should do that, but awareness is the first step, and then from there you can either criticize them from a polemical perspective, or you can sort of try to cooperate with them, because realistically, in the next Trump or whichever Republican administration, that's going to have to happen.
Well, also, I think that one of the thing, this is the one good thing that he did it in the wrong way, but I also in the correct way in some respects. The one smart thing out of the Barack Obama's foreign policy was the pivot to Asia. Like that was
Yeah.
probably
True.
the smartest thing of his foreign policy. I think he was
Yeah,
wrong
the
to
only
approach it.
issue is he was unable to do it because he was
Well, yeah, because he was doing it through like the TPP and not thinking about like a better naval strategy. Because I mean, like the Japanese throughout the entirety of his his tenure in the White House was just like, we can't trust this guy to actually do what he says he's going to do. Whereas Trump finally begins to sort of shore that up, and Biden has actually continued quite a bit of that. Although as with most of my ancestry being English, I just have to laugh at the eternal Anglo just giving the French the shaft by doing the AUKUS agreement and telling the French to go fuck themselves over submarines that are not that great. But I like these things are important to acknowledge, because like let's not kid ourselves. Like the China thing is not going away anytime soon. I think that Bannon's got a lot of emphasis on it. And I think there's also some criticisms to say that like maybe Bannon is compromised in a lot of ways. There's allegations that I need to research and learn about that. And the same way that like
Miles Guo is that the guy?
I think so.
But I mean, the whole Epoch Times. I kind of personally get on with people like that. Even in Australia,
I don't
like
mind. Actually, I know some of the Epoch Times people.
My
Like,
own
I'm mutuals with some of their writers, and it's just like it's not bad. It's just like I know that
we're
you're
thinking of the same guy.
Yeah, we are thinking the same guy. Like we have this, like you have an agenda, like I get it, but also some of your writing isn't bad. But also like, hey, I also recognize that on the grand scale of geopolitics, like the Southeast Asian Pacific theater is not going away anytime soon. And if America was smart, it would learn the lessons from like the Red Sea right now and would be funding Islamic radicals, and be like shooting rockets at Chinese shipping boats off the Straits of Malacca with letters of marque. But like,
later,
but like later, somewhere down the line in based world, like maybe that'll happen, but I doubt it.
The Mujahideen, but in China.
No. Well, I mean, what? Okay, so why do you think they cracked down on the Uyghurs so hard?
Yeah, what do you think the Uyghurs are?
Yeah, what do you think the
Uyghurs are? Like the Mujahideen in China.
They were, because where is Xinjiang bordered right next to? It's bordered right next to the Wakhan corridor in Afghanistan, and where does that go to? Oh, by the way, the Taliban, the Turkmenistan Islamic group, all these weapons and arms and millions of dollars of like heroin that flipped through there. No wonder, like, because this is the thing too, is that we were trying this shit in like 2008, 2009. And you saw all these like newspaper articles about like knife attacks and bombings in like major metropolitan areas in China. So what do the Chinese do? Well, they said, screw your human rights, screw your optics. I'm going in. We're just going to put you in camps. Like that's what they did.
All in camps, literally. Yeah,
they did. And
that's why it didn't work. It did work with the Soviets, though. Although I shouldn't say the Soviets did brutalize those Afghanis pretty hard, but it just didn't work. Like there was no will after a while. Like after 85, there really was no will anymore in the Soviet army, the Red Army.
Well, no one believed in it either.
Yeah, nobody believed in it. They were getting conscripts from like the satellite states and from countries that really didn't give a shit. Like they had like Mongol conscripts go there, and it was just terrible. And then all those guys came home injured and addicted to heroin, and it was terrible.
Well, not to mention that like all the
and the blowback.
Like, the Russian, fuck. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like the blowback is like also all the ethnic Russians that were in like these satellite states. Like let's not forget, like Tajikistan. Like towards the late 80s, you had like a huge ethnic revolt where basically like what was once a majority Russian country is no longer majority Russian.
Yeah,
like that. Like these things can
same
happen.
With Chechnya, yeah. I mean, those people were forcibly relocated by the Soviets, and then
Like Mystery Grove writes a lot about like the Russian Revolution, but I think it's also just as equally important to study like the collapse.
Yeah,
because some of that
that's closer to the current situation in many ways.
Oh, very much.
I think Martin Zellner talks about Kazakhstan like it was like 30% Kazakh, and now it's gone back up. I don't know if that's a perfect comparison. Fiji is an example of remigration. I really like the German sphere. I don't know, man. Sometimes I wish I was an Austrian.
No, but that's what I mean. Like the blowback from it was felt both in like Chechnya, Bosnia, and then throughout the greater Middle East, because all those guys that were trained by the CIA, they went everywhere. I mean, it's very funny, like how they were in Afghanistan for 20 years, and you have guys like Hekmatar, who was trained by the CIA, who are like cutting heads off left and right from the various like religious minorities in Afghanistan in the 90s, and now he's the head of Afghanistan. And he's cutting deals with the Chinese. It's very funny. That's why, like, I remember, like, Marcel, he recommended that great. I disagree with a lot of that. Not a lot, but I disagree with some bits, like when Blumenthal talks about the right wing, like when he talks about Alex Jones. But Blumenthal's book, A Management of Savageries, is really good about this. It is really good. He does go through all the history of it. But anyways, so yeah, but getting back to this whole thing with I wanted to get you on, Garak, because what do you think is going to happen if Trump wins? Like, what do you think would be the immediate what does this time around 2025 look like, you'd figure?
Well, ideally, if he wins, um, I think the thing I've always been most excited about is, the civil service reform aspect. I know there was that controversy with Project 2025, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's just sort of ass covering. He's trying to distance himself from their abortion rhetoric. If you really believe, with the issues with finding people in the first term, if you really believe he's going to turn down the Heritage Foundation's 11,000 names, like I don't know what to say. He's going to have to hire some of those people. It would be completely retarded to not use that Rolodex.
Yeah, and
so that's probably
I have it on good authority that some of the guys that are doing the hiring, one of them has lost a son to trannydom, and he's like ready to just like burn it all to the ground. And
yeah. So I think,
like,
I mean, in
that,
my article,
go for it.
in my article about 2025, the comparison I drew was it's similar to FDR. Like the reason why so many communists got in under FDR was just because the New Deal massively increased the amount of federal jobs, and who are people who were located in cities, ready to be civil servants, like just demographically that was going to happen, and you could see a
Ellis
similar thing.
Islander commies.
Yeah, Project 2025 opens up that opportunity. Well, I mean, it's not Project 2025 so much as the sort of Schedule F reclassification. Like Trump already, they know that what I was trying to say to black pillars is they know what legal mechanisms they have at their disposal, and Trump was already doing. This is the point. It's like everyone's like, oh, Trump didn't live up to his promises. No, he was actually getting shit done right after the election, pulling people out of Somalia, reclassifying bureaucrats. He was already doing it at the end of term one. So really, you just need to re-elect him and let him do it for another 4 years. Like, after a 3-year learning curve, they finally know what they have to do. So, he will get in, he will try to make change, and that'll present a lot of opportunities to DR people if you play it right. On policy, probably the big thing, I agree with Thomas 777 on this. Obviously he's going to give Israel whatever they want. That's not necessarily great.
Unfortunately.
Well, I mean, maybe not, but we'll see what happens.
But he might force Zelensky to go to the negotiation. Go ahead, Garak.
Yeah, that's the thing. Ukraine is the big coup, and with Vance in, that's obviously going to happen.
I love how you called him a zigger.
He kind of is.
He kind of is a zigger, yeah.
So, the Ukraine is going to be the big foreign policy coup, and the sort of factions within the American elite who are skeptical of it, factions in politics who have become skeptical of it.
Yeah.
Like, if you
they know the reality on the ground. They're realists. They know what's happening. They just can't. They can't vocalize. Sorry, go ahead, Garak. Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be the main sort of policy coup. Will he continue? I think he'll continue building. I say continue building the wall because he was building it after 3 years of congressional logjam. They did get the money. Pedro Gonzalez is being dishonest when he says it wasn't happening. So yeah, I think it'll just be a continuation of sort of the late first term. More of the wall will be built. There will be peace in Ukraine. Hopefully they can wind things down in the Middle East, but that's not really my area of expertise, so I can't say for sure. But yeah, I think it's important that he does win. It's important for the opportunities it creates for us, frankly.
Now, I think the problem with Ukraine, though, and the problem is that, okay, when it comes to the Donbass and when it comes to southern Ukraine, the Russians have a very clear plan of redevelopment and reintegration. That's very clear. But when it comes to western Ukraine, I think that a lot of people will have to, a lot of the Ukraine hawks, they will have to admit defeat, especially with JD Vance there. But I think that they're going to have to create some form of a mini Marshall Plan for Western Ukraine, because those people are fucked. And so I think that they'll have to, the people that are in the regime still that are pro-Ukrainian, they'll have to lobby people in the Trump administration to create an exit plan for the Western Ukrainians. Now, what that exit plan would be, I don't really know. Because maybe if, like, you know, a lot of the dissident right people in the West who are pro-Ukrainian, they're like, well, you know, if that'll happen, that means the far right in Ukraine will basically take things over. Zelensky will be done for and it'll be over. I'm not so sure of that. I think that a lot of people within the Western regime that are pro-Ukraine, they obviously feel very uncomfortable with the far right in Ukraine. And in some ways, those people, if like the libtards take hold, if say if Biden wins, it'll be worse for them. They don't want those people around. It'll be I shudder to think what will happen to the far right in Ukraine if there's 4 more years of Biden, apart from being used as cannon fodder. So I think that they're going to have to find a strategic way to redevelop the country, the western part of it. The question of the far right in Ukraine will be up in the air. But I think in some ways Trump he probably won't even care about that, right? I mean, maybe the Russians will bellyache and they'll do their whole retarded like denazification, but that's like a fiction in some ways, right? Like, I mean, it's not a fiction to them, but in terms of real politique, I think that if you're going to have a state where you're going to go to the negotiating table anyways, I think that the Russians will be surprisingly less pig-headed than people think. Now, there will be hardliners that'll like kick up a stink about the far right in Ukraine, but I don't I don't know. In some weird way, I know they hate Trump, by the way. There was that picture where they were burning an effigy of Trump. Yeah. But I think they're going to get a better deal under Trump than they would under Biden if Biden wins, in my opinion.
I'm not sure. I think they have lifted the ban on selling weapons to naughty groups there.
Well, yeah, true.
But
no, but I mean after the war, though, they don't want those people there, like the libtard world order. They don't want, transnational progressivism doesn't really want those people after,
Yeah, I'm not sure. I really don't know, but I don't know. I've heard some people. I do follow a lot of pro-Ukraine accounts out of curiosity, and a lot of them are saying, "Oh, it's because they've managed to take. They have a military. They have military. They have elements of the military. They have elements of the government.
Right.
Like there's reasons for hope. There's a sort of like Reinhard Galen like dark fascist deep state. Apparently, I don't know if that's true. But they're in a decent position. I mean."
Yeah.
I don't know. It depends on what you want. Like I was talking to a friend of mine about this, and he was like, "Oh, you don't understand, man. Ukraine is the chance for Wignat happening. Is that necessarily a good thing? I don't know."
I don't know. I think they're obviously in a better position in their context than the far right is in North America, obviously.
Yeah, it's Eastern Europe. I mean,
yeah,
it's a different world.
Yeah, it's a totally different environment.
American guns just floating around like Scandinavia. I don't know. I don't necessarily know.
Kind of wild.
Maybe
thing. Not be the biggest good thing for Scandinavia, but I mean, I think the other thing to consider too, though, is that like, well, we've heard today, like Vance is like, I know people made it sound like Vance is really like wants war in Iran. I don't think that's the case at all. I think Iran wants a deal. Or Vance wants to just deal with them and then like get out of there and like try and end what's happening in the Red Sea. The same thing with like Trump and Israel. Like
Well, Trump and Vance are the same position apparently.
Yeah, which was basically
that's
like
what I don't get.
Which is basically that a Sunni Israeli alliance like that was more, like return to Abraham Accords is basically what they want to do, and then like more or less leave the situation to where America isn't being used as the strategic tripwire for Israel, which is remarkably sane. Despite like, yeah, obviously it's like Zionist, but also like if it means that America is not being used as the strategic tripwire to like constantly be engaged with whatever Israel's doing, that's kind of good. It's sort of like evangelical dispensationalist. I think that is waning. Like John Hagee is in his like what mid 80s. Like he's not.
In many ways, the polemical value of Catholicism was that it's sort of it was a religious orientation for young online people that wasn't tied into like Zionism. I think that's the main reason why like Fuentes pushed it so much. Like it sort of got you into.
Plus you can do your Simon and Trent posting, and then like you don't have to worry about like your Boomer Baptist dad or grandpa talking about Israel and like Gog and Magog, like George W. Bush. Like it's a great polemical deflection. But also,
Yeah.
like the thing is that like that's probably what's going to happen. Like, and Trump is probably going to try and find a way to like get to the negotiating table on Ukraine. Is that going to be good for like the pro-Ukrainian side? Probably not. Like, is he probably going to get the best concessions that he can? Maybe. That's entirely up to debate. But I mean, like the thing that Trump is going to do is the same thing that Biden's been doing. Is like there's going to try to be a rapid reinvestment and revitalization into America's defense industry. The question's going to be, and this is the question that needs to be discussed for anyone on the right, is going to be, say Trump gets in, but the economy is running on fumes. Like no one believes that this economy is good. Inflation is awful. The price of goods is awful. People seriously can't afford anything, and in legitimate purchasing power for consumers is down. Not to mention just the quality of goods is not great either. Like you go to Home Depot right now, like the lumber is not great compared to what it was even 5 years ago.
That's terrible.
And so I guess my question is going to be like, so what does Trump do if he like inherits a crash? Which I feel like is going to happen.
That might be the plan. Yeah, I mean, for all the academic agents talking about putting the whip away, they probably want to hand Trump the bag.
They want to hand him the bag, either a hot war or a collapse, or preferably both, or war is the way to save the economy. Like to me, like if I'm thinking like, okay, Joe Biden's not going to make it, and I may not have like power, then I need to be setting up as many diplomatic and geopolitical tripwires to where, an American-made F-16 just attacked like Russian like fissile material or whatever, or anything like that. Like if by the way, the economy crashes like 3 months into his administration. To me, that would be the greatest tripwire I could set, and it feels like it's just so ready to go off because this economy is fake. No one's really working, and wage growth has been down, and all the jobs went to my enemies and not my friends. Like it's the perfect setup. I mean, it's great. But I mean, also like Trump's going to do what he can do to do the same thing Biden's been doing: increase the trade war with China and try to get as much industry back in America and get America's defenses revitalized, because odds are another war is going to happen. And I mean, the China hawks and the Pacific faction are going to play a huge role in this, because why? Well, the Davidson window closes in Trump's second term if he wins office, because the Davidson window is supposed to be by 2027, hot war with China. So like you've got less than 2.5 years.
I don't think that's going to happen.
China does have a lot of internal issues, though. Like I am a big believer.
I agree, but I mean, like there is going to be a push. I think that there is a lot of push for it to happen on the American side. Like, there are factions that really want this to pop off.
No, but to clarify my position in Ukraine, what I meant was, I think it's existential for the right wing in Ukraine, for the nationalists, because if they are forced to go to the negotiating table from like the global progressive world order, the transnational progressivism, then they will have their society fundamentally corrupted and destroyed, because the Western Ukraine will be made in the vision of the transnational progressive world order. Whereas I think with Trump, he will be less willing to interfere with their domestic politics, as opposed to somebody who would craft them with some kind of like neo Marshall Plan, where they get to like basically say that, Western Ukraine's depopulated, therefore we have to bring in migrants, therefore we have to bring in gay pride parades, therefore we have to do this and that. That's what my worry is for the right wing, for the nationalism in Ukraine. I'm not against.
We've kind of already seen that as like the avatar for like the NATO posting, like we are Harry Potter, we are Captain America, like that. I feel like that's sort of an inevitability. I mean, I don't want it, though.
I don't. This is the thing.
I don't want it either.
I don't hate those people.
No, I agree. Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. Like, I think it's been like this war has been an absolute disaster for anyone who calls himself a nationalist on either side of that conflict. It's been an absolute disaster for anyone who has seen a historical nation or area or people or ethnic group or language be used by powers that are much stronger than them for the purposes of their own gain. And to witness the absolute destruction of like the two generations of men of various age groups. Like, it's an absolute tragedy. And anyone, regardless of you're pro-Ukraine or not, should see this as fucking insult to God.
Disaster. Yeah, an insult to God. Exactly. 600,000 young men, or not all young, but still men and women. Some women have died, and that's people
Like
you can't fathom
whatever
that.
happens in the future, I just want what is his name, Thomas or Michael Ashton Cirillo to be in jail.
Oh yeah, of course, but
That's all.
yeah.
Just that one small concession.
Apparently, Ashton Cirillo's pivoting to China now or something, or some other thing. I saw this update recently, but anyways, that's beside the point. Go ahead, Prude.
No, I don't want that to be the case. I do feel like what your concern is are very justified, but I guess though, foreign policy is one of those things that I don't think that for as much as like, oh, shit posting gets you seen by those in power or whatever. Like, sure, that's to some extent that's true, but also like foreign policy is I think the area that we have the least pull and influence on.
Right.
I think that if for polemical engines and people that are trying to come up with ideas or policies or catchphrases or memes that'll be popularized by future, conservative regime apparatchiks, I think that you need to be focusing on domestic policy because a lot of foreign policy does begin at home. If there was one thing that like former Council of Foreign Relations President Richard Haas was right about, it was that foreign policy begins at home. And again, like your foreign policy can be substantially improved if you're getting rid of immigrants, you're decreasing the power of progressive ethnic voting blocks by deporting illegal aliens, and you're trying to bring back manufacturing to the United States. Like those are like very strong things that you can do at home that
Yeah,
boost
one of
your.
the issues with onshoring is all this, the Hill did a report on it about how DEI legislation is making
Oh,
onshoring harder for the
absolutely. There was
US. Yeah.
a great article that, or no, it was not an article. It was a report from McKinsey and Company, like one of the largest consulting firms in America, that was basically saying like we don't have the manpower, and our corporate culture is preventing male chauvinists from like South Korea from doing their fucking jobs. And it's so heartbreaking.
And that's the
Because
issue with the Arthur Bloom, with Chuck Johnson worldview, is it's like, so long as Biden allows this shit to happen, he can't be the steward of American power that they think he is.
yeah,
Apparently,
That's how
Richard
you sell Trump
is-
to a neocon.
Yeah. What, the China thing?
Well, just like real, even if you care about if you care about American power, it's clearly declined over the last 4 years.
Right. But then, in a sense, I get the sense that neocons are on their, well, not on their way out in terms of real power, but in terms of the future, it doesn't look good for them. I mean, unless they can co-opt like a junior crop of I shouldn't fucking
Tom
say
Cotton.
that. I shouldn't say that. But unless they can convince younger people to become like implicit neocons,
Oh,
which
you're kind. I feel like you're kind of seeing some of that already happen.
yeah,
like not
I don't want to
younger
name names,
neocons,
but yeah,
well, not younger neocons, but like I think that you're kind of getting like a culture war oriented sort of like neocon, or at least like
Yeah.
a culture war minded like Zionism, I suppose, where it's just like
of course.
I maybe I'm wrong, and and perhaps I am wrong on it, but like I just kind of feel like that was birthed after October 7th, like the whole Claudine Gay, Manhattan Institute, Chris Rufo thing. It's just like, okay, so you're being paid by particularly dissatisfied like Democrat Jewish guys that are upset that the CRT DEI progressive intersectionality framework is coming for you because you're Jewish. And that's unfortunate, sure, for you, but like to quote Tucker Carlson, like, where were you guys for the last 50 years? They were talking about white genocide. Like, that's an important thing to consider. And so, like, all these things are happening. And then all of a sudden, there's this prop up of just like, well, we got to ban DEI and we got to do X, Y, and Z. And like, Rufo's been effective at that. Don't get me wrong. But it's also just like, I also know what's funding that and financing that, which is unfortunate. But also, I don't have any control over that. So I might as well acknowledge and know and map that in my brain, and then go from there. Because like I do think like, a pro-Israel faction that's also anti-woke, like that's I guess a moderate improvement from where you were like even 5 years ago. Like there you go, that's a start. Because they're not going away, like at least for right now. And I think that the what Garak was saying about mapping that kind of influence needs to happen, because I don't. Is it real? Yes. Are they overrepresented? Absolutely. But also, is it the end all be all for why things happen the way that they do in America? No. American politics is too multifactional for that. And it's also
there's a great line, I think Jean Tremaine said it, or someone, that the country is big enough for multiple deep states.
Yeah. there are multiple camps in this in this
and you have, depending on your own personal position, but there are certain people who are closer to our views who have agency, and that's the important thing that you can't. That's the problem with people like Lucas Gage, is they just don't believe, like they don't believe. Once you lose that belief in your own agency and your own control over the situation, that's when you become anti-political. That's when you become like Scrum Monkey or AA even. and you're just like, oh, I don't know, we'll just live in the woods slash, do a terrorist attack or just retarded. It doesn't help anyone.
Is that?
Well,
I don't think
how
that's
does it help
AA's
anyone?
position, though.
How does it help anyone?
I don't know what his
also,
position is. He's very vague.
Well, yeah.
I just don't understand the whole like, oh, we'll just retreat into the woods and we'll come back and tell everyone that they're wrong. Like, I don't know. No, because if you retreat into the woods, you're giving up ground, and I disagree with the position that like, oh, well, we'll wait like a guru in the mountain, and then
Even if you're
they'll come to us.
anti-political, like I'm pretty,
I'm pretty
pessimistic about.
anti-political. Yeah.
I'm pretty pessimistic about politics, mainstream politics in like Canada and Australia. But you shouldn't like live in the woods. You should try and make money and like if you can't influence things politically, there are other means to exercise that influence, which you should.
You have to engage
map
in
out.
culture. Yeah.
You can engage in it. You just have to engage on any level. I don't know. I just feel like a lot of these people they would prefer to be self-satisfied and right. That's the ultimate.
I feel like Moldbug is like that as well. By
The
the
smug
way.
satisfaction. Well, I think Moldbug knows where his connections are because, like, let's not like JD Vance has his cell phone number in his phone, but also that he's worked with Teal. He has his own money. He's from the Silicon Valley world. Like he knows where his bread is buttered.
Easier. Yeah, it's easier for him to say like just sit back and let it happen.
Well, yeah, because he already knows what he's already made his bed. He's gonna lie in it. Like, of course, he's got to just lay back and be like, well, here's actually why I'm endorsing Biden again. Blah 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 blah. Like, okay, like I know where your bread is buttered. Like that's fine. But also like the smug satisfaction because you're now in a position where you can just like go to parties and do ketamine and do whatever you want. Like, cool, like that's fine. But I also know that that's not the life for me. But I also think that that's not necessarily the kind of politics or cultural praxis. I hate using that word, but it's not for me either. And so like I'm very just like on a national level or like I want to join my local Republican Party. I'm just like if you're in a big city, you already know what that looks like. Just imagine a million queers all backstabbing each other and not
same across the world. Yeah,
not sexually, but I mean like just trying to like just screw
Welcome
you over.
To the dissident right. Welcome
like,
to the dissident right. Yeah.
Back shots, but with knives. Like they will do it.
Yeah.
And so, but
well,
I mean,
to be
also
fair though, I'm not that well acquainted with Scrum Monkey's work to really make a judgment on his stuff, but.
Well, I'm more just criticizing the smug satisfaction thing, period. Because that doesn't just apply to him or Scrum. That applies to a lot of people.
I think you need both. I've been meaning to do something about the concept of like a right-wing popular front, which the left, people like John Gans think it exists. People like David Austin Walsh think it exists. It doesn't exist, but if it did exist, it would be keyed. And the whole point is you need both.
All of our enemies think it exists.
Contrary Pancake had a couple great posts about it recently. He was saying that you need a reformist element to sort of destabilize politics for you. You need a reformist element to go into the institution and cause as much chaos as possible. And then you need a radical element to keep the vision pure. And ideally, these two should be viewed as sort of epiphenomena of a broader ideological current.
100%.
The issue is like the right has just gone up its own ass. And they we ultimately have to realize that we're all kind of on the same team and we'll all create, opportunities for each other. No strategy has worked yet. But you just have to be open-minded and diplomatic.
No, but that's 100% correct because that's what I mean. Like if you look at smarter people on the left wing who are engaged in this like weirdo, like semi-communist Antifa type of shit, these journalists, they do believe in that popular front. They believe we're the same, regardless. They believe that we all network each other. They believe that our differences are irrelevant, or that they're just window dressing for some kind of like dark Peter Thiel money or whatever the fuck. Or I guess the Kremlin.
I don't think anyone's getting any more Thiel money anytime soon.
No, but the point being is that our enemies treat us as if we are all the same. They think when they make those lists, they say that everyone from Yarvin to Bap to Fuentes to Christopher Sandbach Graper to Torch the Earth Graper, that we're all the same. That regardless, we're all the same. We're all networking with each other, and we represent some kind of dark heart that's going to swoop down from the mountain and resurrect the Austrian painter from the grave. That's like their genuine belief, and they operate in elite institutions as if that belief is real about the online right wing. And so this is why I stress you should learn these people.
Because you can always get a grant studying the far right.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you will always
get a grant-funded study saying that you're studying political extremism.
Or you could be like that Abramson guy, just make shit up, right? So,
well, I mean, it works, but it works.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unfortunate that it works, but it does.
That's what
And
Russiagate was. It was just him making shit up, you know.
And this is why, like, I try really hard not to publicly stir shit with people.
Me neither. Yeah.
And it's not because
Yeah.
it's not because there aren't people I disagree with. God knows that there are, and if you press me on them, I'll tell you and why I disagree with them. But the thing is that
except for Ethan Ralph, he could go fuck himself. But anyways,
well, there you go, right? Like, I mean,
that's different though.
That character, no, the judgment will not be good to him.
Let's not get into sector drama. Just
well, I don't pay attention to it. I don't watch Kino Casino. I don't follow drama. Like
I stopped watching them after they went on Kick.
But
there's a clip
Gio,
there,
Gio.
The people I will attack would be people like Kanania and other Silicon Valley rationalists, because I think that a lot of them are evil and they don't have our best interests in mind. People like him and Carlin.
Oh no, that I agree with. That I agree with. But my point is that, like, I don't like go out of my way to like just like publicly kick the hornet's nest. In part just because
me
I'm curious to see who wins. Like, if it's a rat race, right, and we're all fighting each other, but we're also fighting against a system, I'm very curious to know who, throws the stone that cracks the dam a little. Whoever causes some water to come out of the dam, that's interesting to me. I like seeing the reactions from certain factions and groups and ideas. Like, what's interesting?
Yeah, that's why people like the Groper War. It was happening.
Yeah, like it'd be kind of cool to have more of that, where I'm not fighting. Like, I don't want to fight Groypers, but I just want to see, like,
right.
I kind of want to know, like, okay, can you replicate what happened in the beginning? Can you get another Charlie Kirk character to, like, basically adopt, some of your positions? Like, that's an interesting thing to, like, okay, we have a model. Can we replicate it? Like, I know that sounds very rationalist and scientific, but, like, I think it's sort of an interesting thing to consider that, okay, say if Trump gets in, the question's going to be like, okay, those who have backgrounds, let's say, have applied for 2025 or whatever, gets hired, what are you going to do, right? Like, this is why I don't think that they're right wing, but like some of those like regenerative agriculture people, or the people that are talking about like waterways or logistical management. Like, for instance, I know
like Palladium magazine people.
Well, I don't like them to some extent, but like at least they're talking about ideas that are interesting. Like, they're the ones that published the whole competency crisis article. That's the reason why that's in the public consciousness. And in the same way that I know Frontiersman, Map Human Intel on Twitter, like, he doesn't really like this side of like the right wing, but like he wants America to succeed, and I think he's a patriot. And that dude's a logistics expert. Like, you want his opinion on, like, if I'm a Trump guy, or if I'm in like, I don't know, like the Department of Commerce, I kind of want his opinion when I'm talking about maritime logistics and shipping, because I want to improve the American economy. Like, those are important people that you want on board. And I asked that question to Jeremy Carl like 2 years ago. I was like, well, where are all the policy wonks that like share my based and right-wing ideas? And he's just like, well, there aren't too many. And those that do, well, they're talking to you. And so, like, there's a manpower question there. And so I think that Garak is right. Like,
well, what does winning condition even look like when it comes to the DR?
Well, I guess true, and it's hard. It hasn't been articulated yet. That's when everyone was complaining about woke education. My point was like, well, what does base Danny Winthrop University even look like? Like, Rufo presents a counter vision. He presents, okay, it's like America was always colorblind, blah blah blah. We know that's not true, but what does our history curriculum look like? This is what people have to start thinking about. Like, even if you have kids, like, what are you going to teach your kids? It's such a basic level.
Well, like, the nice thing is that you have so many options on the homeschooling front. Like, there are a lot of like decent curriculums to work with. And the other thing too is I think there's also just like outside of like a few of the people that have done the reading, and not to say like do the work, as Oliver Bateman would jokingly say, but like, unless you have a pretty good historiography of like your own side, both on a European or an American side, and I think that Garak is one of the few people that I think pretty has a good grasp of that history, is that a lot of us are just historically illiterate. Like, if you read the new Wright papers that Bob Whitaker put together, because again, yes. It's Kino, and like the whole like Giga Chad like female Jack dialogue that's in one of the essays is so good. And I should just read it for shits and grins one of these days on stream.
We need to do a Whitaker retrospective, please. We need to.
Okay. The DR owes so much to Bob Whitaker. It's not even fucking funny, and most people don't know who he is. And that's so depressing these days. But the point is, like, you read these new right papers, you're like, wow, they're talking about the same shit we are, and we either we take it for granted, or we just haven't read them, and so it's just in the public consciousness on the right, and it's just like, okay, clearly ideology for right-wing ideology, I guess, can be like this map of like political trauma where we've engaged with things. Like, why do people they'll look at Patriot Front, right? And they'll be like, oh, like feds or whatever. And it's like, well, do you think that because you're still scarred from Charlottesville, or is there some other issue there? And there's something to consider in that factor.
Yeah, I really softened my view on Fed jacketing over the last year, I think.
Yeah, me
I don't know.
too.
It depends. It's like the chance that a white collar lawyer who could be writing immigration law decides to join Patriot Front. It's like realistically, most people who get into that, or at least in Australia, fixing toilets, or so maybe it's not the worst use of their time. And if they really feel like they want to sacrifice themselves in that way, in a way that's kind of
A lot of them
admirable.
have gotten fucked, by the way. A lot of them.
That's
yeah.
true, but I think people know that going in now. So it's
Yeah. No, that's why I'm skeptical of saying that they're all feds, because
no.
Even not that they say, listen, I'm not saying this for anyone listening. I'm not saying I agree. Okay, just
the problem is just
the problem is Thomas Rousseau is still being hounded by the federal government. It's not.
My real critique of them is just protests and militia stuff. That only works when you have the judges on your side.
Right.
You can compare yourself to Weimar. No, we're worse than Weimar. The judiciary was right wing in Weimar Germany. You can get away with a lot of shit that you can't now. That's
the Fleet Corps got away
complaint.
with a lot of shit because of the judiciary in Weimar. Yeah.
Yeah. So in a way, the sort of BoomerCon complaint that what's the BoomerCon line about the left of the real Nazis patronized by the deep state. In a way, that's true history. I don't know. It's a complex issue. I don't talk about it that much because the other thing is particularly for public figures in our thing, do you really want to be interacting with Patriot Front or?
Yeah,
no, I don't know. It depends.
If you're public facing, no, and also
there's
unless
no
you have
point.
fucking
both me and
also
Prude are
no.
face lords, so it's not. No, but I'm just saying I don't endorse. It's not that I'm endorsing Patriot Front. I'm just saying that to say that they're feds is kind of it's like this weirdo Fed jacketing, and then at the same time, a lot of those guys have their lives destroyed, and
it's just post J6 paranoia.
Yeah,
really, what you want is just anti-doxing laws. Hopefully, one Western country needs to deliver on that and then spread it to the rest.
Right.
The first country that does that, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if this was well, actually, no, because they're kind of they're very left wing in a lot of respects. But I imagine a pirate party in 2010, Scandinavian politics, talking about doxing laws. That would be interesting. But again, now it's totally different from that kind of internet.
Funded by and now guess who's going to get behind it? The the Talmudic Network.
Yeah,
in Australia, actually, the I believe the what's the Australian Jewish Review, one of those magazines, they doxed all the people who were on the membership list for One Nation, which was the Populist Party in the 90s.
Yeah.
And now they've totally flipped, and they're supporting the Labour Party's anti-doxing laws push in response to the doxing of Jewish activists. So that's another angle to investigate.
Interesting.
If you could leverage that sort of Zionist interest to get anti-doxing laws on the books, I think that's a great victory.
Because then you'd have hardcore Jewish interest groups protecting wing Nax from being doxed.
This is the inner truth and greatness of the Talmudic Network, Gio. You see the vision?
That's incredible, by the way. It's Jewish conservatives defending hardcore anti-Semites from being.
Well, but there's precedent for that. March and Stokey or whatever. Just go back to that. Just go back to if there were sincere liberals, that would improve the situation.
Now listen, I know they make a lot of oven memes, and I know that they listen to certain podcast networks, but I will defend to the death their right not to be doxxed.
Are you telling me that real classical liberalism has never been tried?
Real classical liberalism.
No,
this is where
Carlsbad.
No, but this is where
that's why I made the joke.
I used to be way more anti-enlightenment back in the 2010s, but it almost is convincing me of the new Marnite Carlsbadian position.
It's become cold. It's been ruined by
by
South America.
No, but it's almost convincing me of that. If you had genuine neoliberal, not neoliberalism. We have genuine neoliberalism nowadays, but if you had genuine classical liberalism, you would have anti-doxing laws because it would hinder freedom of speech, and you'd literally have Stephen Miller-esque conservative Jewish lawyers defending like Matthew Heimbach and defending like, you know, far right activist groups that protest drag time story hour.
Even if that real like liberalism, you know, never existed, it's a good myth because people
Yeah.
feel, you know, like this is what I've been posting about recently. I think the sort of anti-woke polemic, like it was really you know, all this leftist shit about Steven Crowder. They don't understand the dynamics on the right at all.
Right.
You know, the outrage against SJWs was totally organic, and it was this organic liberal free speech. You know, like people with like Voltaire profile photos and shit. You know, that was organic in Kino, and it got polluted. It got transformed by these weird post-liberal GOP apparatchiks into, you know, oh, we just need to ban porn. It's like, no, like free speech was the issue, and it genuinely moves people. I think even normies are receptive to it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
Oh, not even. They're very receptive to it.
Very
Like everyone feels that the left is censorious. You know, I mean, yeah, like books like Bronze Age Mindset really do hit at that, like the East Germany parallels, and that's very compelling. That's sort of redeeming boomerisms in a way.
Yeah, not all boomerisms are wrong. I mean, there is something at the heart of certain aspects.
That's something that also I think. Sorry to interrupt, but I think that needs to be really shot through. Is that not every boomer instinct is awful? Because if boomer instincts were awful, most boomers would not be voting Republican. I mean, like, Republicans are awful.
That's what. Yeah, I wrote about this. This is the problem with Richard Spencer is he just fundamentally doesn't like these people, whereas Pat Buchanan does like these people. You know, Jonathan Bowden, you know, everyone. Oh, Bowden was an elitist. No, he was speaking in a pub to like North FC, like, you know, English drugs. Like
he was speaking to soccer hooligans. Yeah.
Well, I mean, he was
part about populism.
To middle age and boomer, you know, baby boomer style, you know, people in pubs talking about like H.P. Lovecraft and like how Barack Obama has like become the transmogrification.
Barack Obama's a gay communist from Indonesia. Yeah.
Well, have you read? Have you listened to that talk about H.P. Lovecraft, Gio? It's one of my favorite speeches by Bowden. It's so good. But again, like that's something that needs to be. I wish we could bring that. I wish there could be a thing in America where you just go on like a bar crawl, but you're just giving these like great right wing speeches. But
isn't that what the OGC is supposed to be?
We're slowly we're getting there. We're soon.
But I don't know if America could produce a Bowden. Revel O.P. Oliver, maybe.
Well, America could produce its own version of a Bowden, but America's too big for it to be. It'd be very regionalized. You can have a southern, a Bowden of the South, or something like that.
Could there be a Bowden of Canada?
Not without getting. I don't know. Actually, there could be.
Oh, okay.
It just depends on who breaks the mold, I suppose. Like Canada, I don't know what to make sense of Canada between its immigration and between its like, because it's
the Bowden of Canada would be a practicing Hindu.
Well, it's because George Grant was right.
Yeah.
Like George Grant's conclusions as to what was happening to Canada with like both its Americanization, but also like its lack of like a cohesive imperial identity, came true. And so now it's like a post-national country where China and India are fighting over territory and members of parliament. Like that's terrifying.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that is going to get the attention of like the American security state, and because it has no other choice but to respond to that.
Well, we'll see what happens. The future doesn't look good, but I do think that in those conditions, a Bowden of Canada could rise from the ashes. You never know. But I don't know. Like there are like we have like Wignac groups that get doxxed all the time and like do these like activist club things, and you know it's just a lot of it does seem like they're like all things in Canada. It's like this implicit like LARPing as America type of thing, which I think is kind of like there's something. I think eventually there's going to have to be something that sets Canada apart from America, and it's not just going to be like negative left-wing nationalism of like we're not America. There's going to have to be like a genuine PPP is the Bowden of Canada. I don't know.
Well, I think that the other thing to consider, though, Gio, is that so much of like Canadian politics exists via negativa to America.
Yes, that's what I mean.
Until Canada develops a cataphatic political theology for what is Canada,
but that isn't do that under current circumstances.
No, I don't think you can either. But whoever starts or whoever figures it out is king. Like that will be your leader. Whoever says this is what Canada means, or this is who we are as Canadians. I'm not saying like they're going to be nationalists, or maybe they will be. Who knows? But whoever does that, I think, will set the paradigm
I'd
shift
say
for Canada.
Australia is very similar to Canada. The main
Oh,
difference is
incredibly
that
similar.
Australia defines itself against Asia rather than against America, and that's why Australia is more right wing. That's why it's like
Australia has way more tools to develop it to have a genuine right wing though than Canada, I feel.
yeah, it's richer. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just a couple structural incentives that are fucked. Like the
Yeah.
base population. I mean, we
History
have
of
the
racism.
we have
Well,
the
I mean,
immigration
Canada
policy that
technically
Europe
does.
wants, essentially, like
Yeah.
skills based, offshore processing, like pretty much. And both parties won't touch it. It's just the legal immigration is the issue now. But even that, I don't know. There's just such like a baseline nativism to the population that's quite
Yeah.
The only issue with Australia is everyone's a schizo weak.
That's a lot of people in the political right in Australia are kind of like, well,
Dude, it's crazy. It's worse.
Yeah, a lot
know.
of them go way too far.
I'm diplomatic.
Yeah, me too. But like, I mean, interference says Gio so optimistic about Canada baffles me. Well, it's because years ago, well, not years ago. I mean, even a few years ago, I was like a total black pillar on Canada. Still kind of am. It's just that I realized that in my position to be a total black pill on Canada and to be like, fuck you, I'm going to move to America one day. That sort of like smacks as like a form of bad faith, especially the fact that I'm not a heritage Canadian. I'm a fucking product of Ellis Islander. Although I will say that my father's family's been here for quite a long time, but like still Ellis Islander stock, Italian stock. So I realized that like for me to like totally slough off Canada and be like, fuck this place. Hey, I hate it here. These people are irredeemable. That it comes off as a form of bad faith coming from my mouth than if I was a heritage Anglo or Francophone Canadian. So I feel like there is, and the more you research into Canada, the more you see that there could be potentially something there. But, and Lewis, before I want to hear Garak's opinion, but Louis Cachet asks, who's the greatest living Canadian? I don't know. Brett the Hitman Hart, Darcy Tucker, Wendell Clark. I don't know.
Gio?
Maybe no, I can't.
Gio Panichetti, who knows?
Yeah.
Brett the Hitman
I don't know.
Hart,
I'm struggling to think.
Local distance.
Local distance. There you go.
Is he Canadian?
Yeah, he's from Saskatchewan.
Which makes me laugh when every time he offers like, well, here's how we did things in my province, politically speaking. Like, your province is the size of a small major U.S. city. Yeah, tell me how that's going to work in a state of like 38 million people.
Anyways, what were you saying, Garak?
About
Australia.
Well, Canada, I'm just there's a lot of I think it's demographically similar. It's very urban. It's very once maybe it's the hot weather. The hot weather just turns people into like neo-Nazi.
It makes the white man hate. Yeah.
I don't know. I did a lot of research into the Australian right this year, but I'm kind of skeptical as to how relevant it all was. The opportunity cost of like it will be important. I just think as a geopolitical pawn at the very least, so it's important to pay attention to. But I really need to start elaborating on it. I don't know. I need to show my work to the class. Canada, I'm just disappointed that Poilievre is such a mandate and he's just not going to do anything.
Yeah, he really could like take the crown from the gutter if he really wanted to. I mean, he was going hard the other day on crime, but I mean,
that's
on the safe injection sites, but like
that's
does
like baseline.
It's very baseline, but like he does like things like we're gonna get rid of the CBC and we're gonna fucking defund them and shit. I remember years ago I read one of my good friends. He's still around, by the way. My Bill Marchant, Chili Marchant. He wrote this excellent essay that I believe. Do you remember T.A. Jackson? He pointed me to this essay where he says, like, here's the problem with this thesis that like the average like normie tard conservative has in Canada is that you need to take those cultural apparatuses and gear it towards based world. Because at the time, the National Film Board and even some parts of the CBC did approach something akin to a Canadian-based world where they did have like unique cultural output that you could reverse engineer these people, gut them of their functionaries that are libtards. And because in a smaller nation like Canada, you need a state-funded broadcaster to have a form of cultural creation. And unfortunately, like most CBC shows are like fucking trash that nobody watches because they're all like woke tard nonsense. Like even the shows that people do somewhat watch, like Murdoch Mysteries, they're like, you know, like women were girl bosses in the 1930s,
Turning
whatever.
Murdoch Mysteries into Murdoch. Yes, the Gio
Turning
Fenichetti run CBC.
You said it. I didn't say it. You said it. I didn't say it.
Every time I see things on the timeline, I just go back to those episodes. I'm like, man, they just called it.
Statue
years
of Wyndham
ago.
Lewis outside of I don't know what the Canadian capital is.
Ottawa.
Yeah.
No, but oh, by the way, I hate to break this news, but apparently Peter Rex doesn't like Murdoch.
What?
He said it was too like old head and like it had interracial jokes and
True.
Yeah,
I'm a new fag. I've never watched a full episode.
I've never really watched.
You need to. You should only just for historical value. You should watch it just because it is an excellent time capsule of what the alt right.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. Like I hadn't even read Mein Kampf until like a couple weeks ago.
I've never read. Anyways, Murdoch Mysteries. Oh my god!
Just like Law and Order, how it always ends with a white guy from like Wall Street getting arrested. We already know how Murdoch Mysteries ends.
They have a Law and Order Toronto now. They have that, and it's like it's exactly what you would expect. It's like the white guys are like preying upon like BIPOC, LGBTQ plus, blah blah blah. It's not. Yeah. Apparently, Chris Yervin got married again.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Marco Rubio speaking right now, and I kind of had it playing on the other tab, and like
homeboy.
He's kind of
Rubio.
I'm hearing it was better. People are saying
it's kind of gemming out right now. Just by
people are saying Cruz's speech was good.
Marco has redeemed himself in some ways. I mean, he's still homosexual, but he's redeemed himself.
Well, he's also part of the NatCon mix. Like he would basically be the same as Vance, maybe a little less, maybe a little tougher on Russia.
Well, yeah. I think a big reason why Marco didn't get it is just because of the electoral college. Like they're both from Florida. They're residents of Florida. Like there's no point. But no, like Marco Rubio is just going off and he's just doing the whole my heckin' little guy speech. Like he's learned how to do public speaking a lot better. We can give him some credit there, I guess. Like Florida's kind of the oh boy.
God, I had such a big Florida politics kick when I got started. It's almost embarrassing.
Florida's like the weirdest place for American politics outside of like I want to say it's still one of the weirdest places for American politics because it's just like you between frickin' Haitians and then like a bunch of like wealthy Jews and then just like God knows everything in between. And the Miami-Dade, like it's a wild place for politics, especially from like the 80s onward, like for gubernatorial elections. It's crazy.
I can't believe they won the Stanley Cup against the Oilers. Fuck. Damn.
Place that doesn't see snow regularly has an award-winning hockey team.
You gotta become a snowbird, Gio. You gotta.
Yeah, I know.
Be like Viva Fry. Be like your country man.
They have 2 Stanley Cup winning teams. I believe.
Absolutely wild.
Yeah, I believe the Tampa Bay Lightning has won the cup 3 times. I mean, they won in 2006 because they had Tortorella as their coach, but that's like, yeah, they had a really good team too. Fuck, man, I'm so pissed. I can't believe it. McJesus hasn't won a cup yet. Fuck. Anyways, greatest living Canadian. I don't know. It's a toss up between Bret Hart and Wayne Gretzky, and maybe I don't know. I could think of a few others though.
Martin, Russian cosmist.
He's American and Canadian.
I know, that's what makes him the perfect Canadian.
Yeah.
Is Mart Canadian?
Martin?
No, Mart.
No, he's Argentinian.
He's Argentinian.
Okay.
That's why he's so horny all the time.
That explains so much.
Yeah.
Millet will personally throw him out of a helicopter under the orders of Cal Crucis.
You know what? I'm
Millet
pissed at Mart.
Personally throw him into horny jail.
I admire Mart's posting ability, but he put me in the fucking D tier of the right-wing E-celeb list. He put me next to it was me, Levantine Gold, Sicilian, and Astral.
You're really not letting this tier list go.
No, because every time I was either never mentioned or I was put in fucking D. Only a few people put me in A. Put me and you in A. You were put in A more than me.
Gio,
I'm fucking pissed. Fuck all these people. You know what? Fuck them. All you people suck Peter Thiel's dick. Go fuck yourselves, okay? Fuck. I'm going to go. You know, I'm going to become a libtard. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to become like Richard Spencer, esoteric libtardism.
I want someone to write that book, Esoteric Liberalism, and it's
Gio, if you do a piece defending
Scar.
Trudeau, I will personally pay. I would pay. I'll pay to see that.
The Cole report,
like an ISIS hostage video. There's like a American spirit put out in your eye.
I couldn't do. I would be.
It's
I couldn't
2024.
do it, yeah.
I renounce my views.
I renounce my views. I'm pro Justin Trudeau. I think he's doing great. He's doing a great job.
This is why I like Sandmatch, because he'll do it for free.
Yeah. Dang it, Gio. Just for that, you were going the C tier. You were in B tier. Oh, fuck. You people.
See, like...
Gio turning out and becoming his ROG.
So true. This is why one of Schwab's greatest things that he's ever put out is talking about just psychosecurity. Just don't. You can't let that shit get to you.
No, but it's just Mart fucking put me there, and it's just I always promoted him, and I always thought he was a great poster.
What tier is Mart in? He's kind of,
Speaking of which, I never made it that high in your tier either, asshole. I wasn't happy about yours either. And then someone told me it's because Garak can put out his tier list, and then that's the only one that miffed me, and I was like, oh, that
really?
fucker. And then
B is fine.
Mart posting actually used to post about books.
Enough, apparently.
Did you know that?
Was generous. I'm very picky. S tier was Contrary Pancake and
Yeah, that's I
want the Amana tier list.
I gotta gem out.
I want that one from the Ramana edits. I need that. I was quite surprised to make it on there.
I know, I didn't make it on there. My S tier would be...
My favorite was someone that had himself and then everyone else's.
Yeah, that was a good one. Yeah. He's like, all you guys, he's like, you F slurs. Yeah. No, listen. Yeah. I don't know. I wouldn't have a definitive S tier, but definitely Contrary Pancake would go up there.
Luc Francois.
Yeah.
Franz McCorney. I'm very biased.
And Julius, of course, would be my number one go-to. You probably would go in there, or you would at least go in A tier, Garak.
Oh, thank you.
Who else would I pick?
All
Torch the Earth.
All the people that give you super chats, Gio.
I like Mika. He soft blocked me, but I still think he's a good poster.
Mika has not accepted my follow request on his locked account, but I will say that even though I don't agree with everything he says in terms of his analysis, I do think that Mika is more correct.
He's a great poster. He's a great. I think the trick with a great poster, I was talking to D about this, is it's whether or not you remember particular line, being memorable, essentially.
Yeah.
I can still go back and I can even think of tweets there are certain Carlsbad tweets that are sort of sewn into the fabric of my brain.
Yeah,
and,
same.
Come out in homework assignments.
Mika definitely is that level.
Absolutely. Yeah. The amount of concepts that he's come up with. I mean, you have to respect it.
Sam, Sun Wound. Well, I mean, he's a personal. I consider him a friend. And he's a great filmmaker. So-so. Yeah. So-so. Land Shark, of course. Although a lot of Amarne people don't like Land Shark. But Land Shark definitely, if you want to go for memorable posters.
Land Shark's good because he breaks out of the ghetto.
He does break out of the ghetto.
Luke was talking about this. He was like, Land Shark has sway over these normie Zoomer gym bros. That's an important function.
Oh yeah. Is Luc Francois back?
I'll tell you. We'll talk about this on the show.
All right, let's talk about this on the show.
That's a private chat discussion.
Private chat discussion. Yeah.
We hail him.
Mention Small Bugman, but he's gone. All the old, but then again, I would put the S tier as guys who are gone, like Melzacek, Menaquan 4. I would say I hate to give him such a thorough reach around because I do believe he's one of the most important philosophers of our lifetime, if not the most important. But in terms of posting, Nick Land has to be up there.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Has to be up there.
Thomas is
Thomas,
Thomas has such a unique style.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, honestly, Fuentes, like,
Puck on.
Having the pleasure of meeting Thomas in person is probably one of like my top internet like moments I've ever had. It was great.
Nightmare Vision,
yeah.
I like how he regularly breaks containment. I like how he will have just tweets that go absolutely viral, like millions of views.
You know what my controversial pick would be?
Shoot.
Wyatt. Because Wyatt can do, like, when he's on, but he can like say some like perverted, fucked up thing, but like he kind of makes, I mean, he kind of does take a wrong position a lot of the times, but I think like the fact that Wyatt is like so provocative and out there and he makes people so angry, like it's just, you know, I don't know who else would be a controversial pick. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to give my due credit to a lot of amazing
I think Fuentes
posters.
has a couple good bangers from the archives.
Oh yeah,
to be
definitely.
Honest. Like he's pretty good.
Yeah. I'm trying to think though. Who else am I
Recently,
missing?
he's gotten too serious, but he's got a couple like he used to have some good bits. Like
I think it's because he's in election mode right now.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Everyone's posting style changes when it's an election year.
Oh, Scorch the Earth. I mean, I know he's like a Milady guy, but like Scorch the Earth, definitely. He's a top tier poster.
Yeah, Doyle. Yeah. We hail Doyle.
Yeah,
we liked
Doyle.
Scorch the Earth policy. Who else? Because I know, like Scorch the Earth, like he long posts, but you sit down and you read.
I would put Robert in that list.
Oh, Egg Report.
There's a couple good Australians. I like Percy Sneedson.
I didn't know he was Australian.
Yeah, that's the whole. He's yeah.
Oh, you know who am I forgetting?
Walter Sparky is a friend of mine.
Atrazine Graper.
Arian Keating is back.
Oh, that's nice. I'm forgetting Atrazine Graper. Atrazine Graper I would put in the S tier. He's like top tier poster. Yeah. I don't know if he's back. I think he left though for good. Atrazine Graper. Unfortunately. Carlos and Nando the Notice. Yeah, Carlos, he's up there.
Carlos is a good aggregator.
Yeah, he's a good aggregator. Yeah.
I don't really follow that many big accounts anymore. I sort of downsized to the smaller account and just kind of follow like the anime guys.
That's where the writers. That's where the real writers' room is. It's all the smaller accounts.
Yeah,
that's what the Antifa guys don't get. It's a great dynamic because all the engine room ideologically is the anons, but then they just go after the faces as if the faces came up with the ideas, and they just do all this thing about
there's no This
Tucker
is what
Carlson got divorced from Tucker Carlson's parents divorced, so this affects. It's like no, he's totally irrelevant. Tucker is just a guy who. One of his writers was reading our stuff. Like that's essentially it.
Yeah,
and that's
like,
why anons are
you
good.
had Greg Ree and Scooter Downey reading like right-wing Twitter tweets. Like, yeah, cool, that's fine. But like Tucker Carlson, no. I mean, that's what Nightmare Vision was saying not too long ago. It's just like if you're an old head who face fagged years ago and like you're like just like irredeemable in the public view, like yeah, you're kind of a trailblazer, but also like you got nothing from it. So stay anonymous.
Court case.
John Winthrop, obviously.
Honestly, when we win though, I want like an old head pension. So like if you were like some old head who got like doxxed in like 2018 or whatever, and you lost your job, like okay, I want to give you like a small pittance from the state.
Oh, Sentinel of the Grave, he's good.
Oh yeah, Sentinel.
Yes.
Yeah.
I like that's an Alan Tate line, right?
Oh, we could have like mutual trust societies, but like for right wingers,
Well, eventually that's something that the OGC wants to do is just to like at any point in time if someone
mutual aid,
old head pension.
Yeah, well, honestly, because okay, so I think I said this privately. I don't know if I've said it on the air, but I do like Millennial Woes. I have respect the guy.
Yeah.
I like the guy's work. I'm glad that he's writing on Substack. But I also know that like I don't think he could ever get a normal job again if he like really needed the money. And so it's
not
just
where
like,
he lives, maybe in America, but not
maybe but he's never going to move to America.
No.
But the point being is that it's just like, well, like in Based World, if when we win, like he gets like the old head pension fund, like
there'll be
like
a
your life.
statue of John Winthrop.
Yeah, a statue of John Winthrop, like that. All these things has to have like the John Winthrop, like heritage fund, where it's just like, if you were a poster that was doxxed by like the SPLC or Hope Not Hate, like you will get a pension fund simply for being based. Like that's just how it's gonna work in the future.
Yeah, that Griper art grant. Yeah. Yeah.
Passage prize. I mean, maybe I am 1776 should be looking into this. I mean,
Oh yeah, definitely. Oh my.
And it's impressive that
State-sponsored
they are running
posting. Yeah.
on such a state-sponsored posting. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Screw your state
Kirkpatrick is
mandate.
good. I like, but he can get a bit pessimistic.
Which
But
is
his
funny because
pessimism is like very cutting, though. I gotta admit.
his pessimism's cutting and it's very sobering. But it was very interesting because he did an interview with Jay Burgeon not too long ago where he's just like, "I'm gonna go grab a beer and then I'm gonna drop a few white pills." So I think what we might call his pessimism. I think he's just like he's been doing this for 20 years and
Yeah, exactly.
He's
That makes
shtick.
sense.
He took a lot of those.
I would be
shots, too, yeah.
incredibly black-pilled or cynical if I've been doing this for 20 years and I've only seen it get worse.
Yeah.
No, especially if like your whole life was fucked with too because of it.
Doxing really, I mean, you can't overstate how much it like truly fucks over someone's life and change. It's really like an unforgivable offense in many ways.
They doxed the white paper guy recently.
And it's okay if you're somewhat connected, like Lomez or REM.
Yeah.
But like it's like if you're not running a publishing house, you could still totally get fucked. That's why you need anti-doxing laws. Someone needs to put that in a white paper, get that on Trump's desk.
Yeah. No, there needs to be severe consequences.
So
for
I
doxing,
wonder.
yeah.
So no, that raises an interesting question. If like you could potentially, I'm now thinking, could we look at the laws for say like revenge porn laws, but then like regraft that to where it's about doxing? That would be that might just be like the ground floor I work from. And then go from there.
We could treat it like revenge prawn or like
Well, no. So like revenge, the laws on the books for revenge porn. Like if we were to read them and see what laws are they interacting with respects to
right,
exposing private information. Like
no, but if it was like a ring of doxing, you could even use RICO laws against that.
There was that paper that Irish guy wrote about like mapping out Antifa networks.
Yeah, I don't know why someone hasn't tried to just like RICO them.
Because we don't live in base world.
Well, I mean, like I think it's also because like the state AG doesn't want to sue the FBI.
Yeah.
Or even in the UK, like they're all tied in with Hope Not Hate. Obviously, is tied in with MI6 and.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I think the main concern with
that's what AA's bit with Jacob Rees-Mogg on GB News was. Is like, well, no one wants to sue MI5, and then he was just like, "Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Dr. Marvini." It's just like, bye now.
God.
Even although AA was absolutely right, like no one wants to sue MI5, like no one wants to deal with the fact that like both the Labor Party and MI5 have close connections and work outright with Hope Not Hate. Like that's unless you're willing. Like this is the conversation about like all these like quote unquote peaceful regime change discussions that gets really uncomfortable. It's just like, so what do you do about like a highly powerful secretive intelligence agency that has budgets that aren't publicly known that could end your life? That
could JFK you, yeah.
Well, not even just JFK, you just plant cheese pizza on your computer and it's over.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Like
yeah.
Questions that will have to inevitably be answered, I suppose. This is why I always laugh at the Patrick Deneen. Was it Vermeulen or Deneen that recently did the book on regime change? I think it was Deneen.
I think it was Deneen, yeah.
Yeah, but Deneen spends no time talking about like the military in that book at all. And I'm just like, huh, that's interesting.
Well, it's a touchy subject, yeah. Like,
well, I know because you can't
take it back to the Trump shooting. Political violence as a concept. I mean,
well, yeah, I know because any serious conversation about regime change has to calculate for things that they're not legally really comfortable talking about. And I always chuckle when I read these literature because it's just like, well, no one's talking about like the officer corps here, like at all. And then I'm like, oh, I'm asking very uncomfortable questions. I should stop talking.
To go back to the officer corps of the 1920s, the Joseph Benedersky Jewish threat era, Luke Francois Aquino, when they were all
so far gone from us today. But with that, I'm gonna
Garrett,
Garak, where can we find your work?
You can find it on Twitter at Garak Obama with an N. And I do a bit of writing on Substack under unreconstructed.substack.com. Those are the two places.
I have those links down below in the wonderful description. So I'm going to transition over to the Super Chats real quick. And we'll just go right on through them. It is already over a 3-hour episode. So congratulations, guys. You did a great job. On keeping us here. But also, Garak, you've been a fantastic guest. I would love for you to come back on.
Thank you.
And if not, we definitely need to do the Bob Whitaker retrospective. That like just needs to happen. You, me, and Sandy can do that. All right, so internet friend, there you go. He says, "Thank you, Shinzo Abe, for protecting Donald John Trump." So true.
I love that meme. Yeah, it was very touching.
Get up, Shin. Get up.
Yeah. I heard a voice from an old. I thought I heard a voice from an old friend. That was great. That I almost cried when I saw that tweet go viral.
It's the Norwood version of the AH one, but no, I like it.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah. Very wholesome Chungus. Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Young Ophelia is good.
Oh man.
Yeah, it was wholesome. Bolero, Nimrata Haley, Mrs. Vance, Cow Dung, Magism. I've said it before, like, and you'll see it in a lot. Hopefully it's not as bad in Australia, but
no, it's worse.
oh God.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
not immediately, but like
it's coming.
The student politics institutions, like the demographic flow. Don't even get me started.
Yeah. So, and I've already said it, Bolero, like the subcontinental population of the United States, Hindu and Indian or Sikh alike, are just going to play a large role in the GOP apparatus in the coming years. Like, it's just inevitable.
There was always a fascination with Hinduism and the far right for many years. So,
Yeah.
This is COVID.
Still is, yeah.
Still is.
Oh, man.
Yo Mama says 2015 proved Canadians cannot be responsible with responsible government.
Oh man.
2015.
That was when Trudeau got elected.
Yes.
Yeah.
Gabe Underground says, y'all ready for total PayPal Tealvani Dark Elf victory? I'm definitely picking up some Palantir and crypto stocks now. Well, if you're in it to make money, this is a great time for a pump and dump, as they would say.
I do have a Silicon Valley article forthcoming. I just need to,
we just need it appropriately when it comes out. We will share it. Bolero 393 says we need to focus on the South Carolina GOP. Do they not have straight men in there?
Oh God.
Yeah.
That's a question for Sneed Batch.
Yeah, it's a question for Sam
Lindsey
Batch. I'll tell you
Graham's
more.
top guy.
Yeah, Lindsey Graham's top straight man. Yeah, it's Sam Batch, the only like straight man in the South GOP. 10 next just sends $1. Thank you so much. Dave Rubin, speaking of the RNC on trad fatherhood, I have not noticed him speaking at all this night. I could be wrong, but I've got the Right Side Broadcasting Network with over 1 million subscribers. I've not seen Dave Rubin at all. It's been a lot of outside of like Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio. I think it's been like a primarily like alt white. Ben Carson and Vivek spoke today, so I can't say that, but it's been much better. Oh, and Nimrata spoke. That's unfortunate, but it has been much better than it had.
What's the deal with Ben Carson? Why does everyone like Soy Jack?
I think it's just because it's like Ben Carson's just like wholesome Chungus, like black neurosurgeon,
face black man.
But like,
that is an Alan West
VP, like
because people see him as harmless, like because the VP slot's supposed to be harmless, but like,
I guess so.
To me, like Vance being in there, I think it's a better fuck you to the GOP establishment than Mike Pence was.
It's just more interesting. Like I don't know.
I think like I guess he speaks to that like middle America like church going Protestant.
Carson would have been entirely unoffensive.
My mom in 2016 really liked Ben Carson, but she also saw like the Ben Carson story and all that other shit. So it's just like I think that has a lot to do with it. This is just like it's squishy MAGA mommy.
It would have been boomer bait.
It's boomer bait. That's all. Every Caesar needs a Crassus to bankroll his plans. Our choices are getting bankrolled by neocon boomers and our ex-tech bros. Yeah, basically.
God.
A very good friend of mine who's very bullish on this. He has a great line. He's like, someone had to sign the check for the Enlightenment. Like that's basically it.
Holy shit.
You need people to just, some people do just need to get rich. And it will happen. Like, I think, with the amount of people who are into the DR now, the odds of one guy striking it, getting lucky, the next Teal, the next, better than Teal,
could fund me and my artist
That's going
friends.
to happen. That's going to happen. Like,
yeah,
I trust the DR finance bros a lot more than I trust the Antifa lumpen proletariat.
Yeah, so true.
Bolero says James Kirkpatrick, the most sensible of centrists. Yeah, he's I think he's got pretty moderate take.
He's centrist to a fault, even when certain factions insult him. He doesn't care.
I think that he is the bigger man, and he's seen so much shit flinging in the 20 years he's been doing this. I think he's just stepping over it. I too would be jaded and not giving a fuck if I were in my early 40s and I've seen so much shit in the last 20 years being in like identitarian pro-white politics. Seasider, little video game streamers ad revenue has just been paused on Twitter. Oh yes, Destiny has been temporarily suspended off Twitter.
Thank God! Massive victory!
Press S
Massive
to spit.
W! Belted! Yes! Thank God. Fuck!
Yeah, fuck Destiny.
What a white pill that is.
Goodbye of Lemberg says, good podcasters, Zonies, 777, Dave Rubin, Nick Fuentes. All may not like it, but us Chase are white. Talmudic Network is Oren puts it. No.
Let's just skip over this one. I don't know.
I'm
Pull
gonna
up the full tide. Pull up the full tide graph. Pull up the
pull up the full tide
graph. Floyd the graph.
They're staying in politics. Like, let's not kid ourselves. I mean, like the post-war conservative movement is like Jewish, Catholic, and very Germanic, and it's been effectively de-anglicized, which is unfortunate. But you're your own ethnic group, and you will always act like it. But that's all I can really say there. Zelensky losing for not being gay or Z enough. Just the military situation on the ground.
Yeah, it's the situation's growing out of his hands. He's passing day.
Yeah. Green Glasses 777 is pretty much a Z man on this topic, but would love to see Quarmatane and Thomas hash it out in a discussion. And at any rate, cheers, Peter.
Who's Quarmatane?
Or Carmartian?
Friends with Thomas. He's like a Ukraine supporter. He's pretty good.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'll have to look into that. Yo Mama asked, do the powers that be really think that two nuclear powers can have a hot war that isn't nuclear? I mean, we did that a lot with the Cold War.
Yeah.
Nukes aren't real, except the Mika red pill.
Nukes, if nukes are real geopolitically.
Except where Mars was nuked. Yeah.
Well, yeah. No, but
JD
in terms
Van,
of geopolitics, though, that's a
JD Van says where his bread is geed.
His kid's name is Vivek. That kind of fucks with me.
Yeah, it really bothers me.
Fuck with me, yeah.
Vivek.
He's got Mirabelle and Ian and
Vivek.
Who said it in the Pat Casey show the other day? He's just like, did he just finally tell his wife? He's like, yeah, fuck it, you get one.
Didn't she date Vivek in college or something?
They were friends in college. I don't know. It's awkward.
Oh
it makes me
my
uncomfortable.
God!
Bowden's on Robert E. Howard is quite good also. Yes. Really all of Bowden's speeches are bangers.
Why do you think
Robert E. Howard is excellent?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that Vivek and his wife, never mind.
I'm going to let you think about that. And I'm going to practice good psychosecurity, you sick fuck. Wire says Canada needs more Norman McLaren.
No, that's true. He was a great contributor to the National Film Board as an animator and a filmmaker.
There you go.
Yeah.
Jay Ford says, "What do you know what OGCs are thinking about think tank wise chapters? I don't know if we're gonna do well, maybe somewhere down the line we'll have
the think tank is the Substack.
Well, no, I mean that's more of a polemical engine and a way to make money. It's just a great way to write opinion pieces on politics. Where honestly, I've written more for the OGC this year than my own Substack, which is an insult to my readers. But I've got an essay on trauma and ideology coming out soon. But I use it as a way to write like puff pieces about politics and rank punditry in ways that I don't get to on this channel because most of you guys don't want that shit from me.
It's like why I have the Cole report for myself.
Like if you wanted me to do what like Oren is doing, I feel like you would have told me already, and I don't think you want that. So I use the OGC Substack to talk about these things. For instance, I get to talk about like I'm writing a review for the movie Dave with Kevin Kline. Like it's very prescient stuff for kind of like the whole Joe Biden dementia shit. That's kind of funny in retrospect. But I mean, think tank stuff, the board has talked about it in the past. I just don't think that we're in a position right now to stop doing what we're doing and be full-time policy wonks. We're not in that position. Kara Small says, Gio, as a fellow artist, how do you silence or better use your inner hate?
It all has to come out in the work. That's the only thing I could really say. It has to be channeled into something productive. But then again, I think that art requires a lot of planning, a lot of sketching, a lot of different approaches to how you view your inner emotive state. But I think that it has to come on its own. It has to be organic. It can't really be something that like there's never this sort of like pop culture depiction of like, oh, I'm using my inner hate, I'm channeling everything into it. Those things come naturally. It's not something you could really consciously channel. It just eventually will pop out because the work of art eventually will reveal a form of your inner self or your inner unconscious in a way that you wouldn't have really expected. So that's the only thing I could really. I mean, silence is integral as well. Sometimes just sitting and doing nothing can often be more productive than you actually think. I remember I heard this from Derek Jensen. He said, I could remember being, when I first started being a writer, like I just sat around, did nothing. And sometimes that was some of the best relief from whatever I was trying to get at. And yeah, so that's why a lot of artists are lazy bums that can't have that doesn't, I certainly don't have a grasp on normal tasks in life, but
So true.
say la vie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Let's see here. All right, over to Entropy real quick.
I need. Listen, you guys have to get me financially stable enough to where I could pay like a secretary or like an editor.
Well, isn't that what we all? Isn't that what we all need?
And by secretary, you need to find someone to like threaten his life on a daily basis. That's what your money should go for.
Yeah.
You tell him to produce art, or you'll like murder him or something. Like
to get me I need someone to give me urgency.
Give me money or a manual typewriter, or threaten my life until I create great works of art. But on to Entropy real quick. Seneca says Missouri lore: the 1812 New Madrid earthquake. The New Madrid zone near the Missouri boot heel hasn't been active for a while, but when it ripped in 1812, it was apocalyptic. Mississippi literally ran backwards and hundreds died, estimated 8.2 on the Richter scale.
Oh, man.
Thank you, Seneca, again for your Missouri lore, and your article is getting published with the OGC this Monday, sir. Charlie Mackey says, good evening, gentlemen. I'm looking forward to catching the VOD tomorrow. How are the reviews coming? The Substack article for your review that you paid me for to do the Cruelty Squad review, like I said, will be out at the end of the month. And I'm finally replaying Cultist Simulator, like you asked, for $100, which I appreciate, but I think I'm gonna have to change the price for video games because that's a much bigger time investment than watching a movie or reading a book. But things are going well. Appreciate it, Charlie. Sam153 says the Force ghost of Shinzo Abe was with Trump on that fateful day. I'm glad everyone likes the Shinzo Abe. See you later, Space Cowboy.
It's because deranged communists hate Shinzo Abe. So yeah,
they hated him because they told him to have sex and have children. Like, sorry, like the reproduction of the Japanese people will continue. Like I'm trying. Well, anyways. Owen Celesti says, evening, gents. I hope that you are all well. I've been working on a lot of art lately. I've enjoyed Gio's content minded. Please make more of those, Gio. I'd love to hear more about mediums and making art as well. God bless. We are going to make it.
Oh, yeah.
You heard the man. Go make more content minded episodes. And then the last one is from
I have a bunch of interviews. I have one solely on, actually.
The last one's from John Carter, but I'm going to... so here it is, Gio. This is for you to read. John Carter spent $20 for you to read this.
Where'd you put it?
I'm putting it in the private chat here.
Okay. He wants me to read this?
Yeah. I think it's pretty kino.
Do it.
Okay. Little effing frogs, little effing tier list goons. My show effing platform, these little pieces of effing shit. I rule. The effing right. Those gripers get ruled by people. Oh, I see what he's saying. Those gripers get ruled by people like me. These little fucking shits. They look up to me and see a fez like mine looking down at them. That's how the fucking world works. We're going to destroy these fucking sphere. There you go.
Man, he got his $20 worth, or I got my $20 worth.
Little fucking frogs.
So true. So true.
I didn't know what he was going with, but then I started reading. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah,
Does Spencer really say goons in the original?
No, I don't think he had goons in the original. No. Let me read that. I think I didn't read that correctly. Little fucking tier list goons. My show fucking platformed. These little piece of frog shit. Oh man, that's amazing. Someone's got to do a super cut of that. Look at Brent. $20 to read that.
Yeah,
oh,
it was good. It's well done.
Oh man.
All right.
I need some more water. Holy shit.
There he is. There he is.
Sandbach Scraper. Oh.
Yeah. We forgot to show that at Sandmatch Grove.
Yeah, Sandbach Scraper needs more followers.
I kind of gave up on that. I don't know. After the prank was done, I sort of
It was
No,
so
you need to
good.
complete the synthesis of the perfect Sambachian thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Real sandbachism hasn't been tried yet. Like, it just
I'm
needs to
still
happen.
a
The
scholar.
rehabilitation of FDR
And
has
you'll-
not been completed.
Oh man.
That's what it's building up to. I feel like I don't know. I still.
I'm
kinda see the
waiting
left
for
as
him
still
too,
anti.
because like he'll tease it out in my DMs with him, and then I'm just like, he's never going to publish.
There are a lot of things we're waiting for Mr. Sandmash to write.
Yeah.
I'm waiting
No, I
for.
shouldn't throw stones.
I'm waiting for the. I can get behind the, because I'm reading some of Woodrow Wilson stuff. I'm like, I can get behind the Woodrow Wilson. Can't get behind the FDR rehab. I can't in good conscience do it. It would betray
Yeah.
every fiber in my being to do it. But
I'm too pro German. I'm
I
too pro German to do it. I'm too much of a Teutonophile.
yeah, like I can't in good conscience be.
It's it's too polemical. It's like, oh, Browns don't like FDR. Okay, what about Sam Francis? What about, I don't know.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, like, like, oh, these Germans didn't like
I'm more of a Luke
FDR, but it's just like, well,
Francois,
there are a lot
old-
of WASPs that hated FDR before FDR got elected. Like, what are you talking about? Because
Yeah,
like
I mean, he's being a
that's my take with it. I'm just like, so Garrett, named Peter Edwin Garrett, a Anglo who's been there since the beginning of the country, his bloodline, hated FDR, and you're telling me that like this is a German Jewish Catholic thing? No, I disagree.
It all clicked for me when I was rereading The Ordeal of Civility, and there's a line where it's the chapter later in the book where he's talking about latecomers to modernity, and he says there are all these literary parallels with all the people of the FDR coalition, and they all, like, Irish people had The Last Hurrah, Jewish people had Philip Roth, black people had in The Invisible Man, and then he says rural Protestants had Thomas Wolfe, the other Look Homeward Angel, I
Yeah.
think. And I was like, and then it clicked. I was like, whoa, latecomers to modernity, and they're including Southerners in that.
Yeah.
That explains a lot about.
Us Italians were latecomers to modernity.
I'm
some
just saying you
ways.
can totally retrofit that into like an anti-paleocon. I'm not sure what to do with it yet, but it's an interesting way of looking at it.
I mean, that'd be an interesting way to look at it from like the "Here We Stand" Southern agrarians types. But I mean, also on the other hand, I'm like, like the great modernity and the coming of the Southern culture. It sort of to reference what I think is Walker Percy when asked about literature was just like, it's because we lost the war. I don't know. There's something there.
It's like
but
Russia. They're like the Russians, yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
weird K line to go through, and that's a weird one to unpack. But Gio, what do you have going?
We didn't talk
What?
about libs of TikTok going insane and doxing like Walmart pros and getting them fired.
This
I don't care.
complicates my Jewish anti-doxing thesis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's that
The public-private distinction is an aspect of modernity that they haven't reconciled themselves to.
Well, my position is that it's bad optics and that you should go after people in power, not like Walmart greeters. You know what I mean? Like, it seems kind of like, I don't know. I'm more. I guess.
okay,
I'm
but okay,
about
but
it.
if you were a rabid Antifa guy and
Right.
like Knights Templar 1488 Groiper, you can dox him, and it turns out he works at like Staples and he makes minimum wage or whatever. Are you not going to do it? No, you're going to dox him.
Well, yeah, I guess.
I feel like big accounts shouldn't be getting their hands dirty like that.
I
It's one thing
agree.
if
Yeah,
Ray Gun Groiper does it, but,
I think that Libs of TikTok since October 7th has kind of gone a little unhinged, but also on the other hand,
I've never doxed anybody.
I'm not going to participate in a doxing ring, but I think that the other hand is just that I don't think she's going to delete it. And on the other hand, I think that unless she starts using this to go after and getting superintendents and district attorneys fired, then it's not going to be for naught. So
I don't like it because it allows leftists to pretend that they're persecuted.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I don't want to give the left. I don't want to give the left a persecution complex or a.
Don't you know we're run by people like Libs of TikTok?
Oh yeah, truly.
Well, I mean, in a way we are.
In a way we are.
Radicalized by the Washington Post comment section.
Yeah, radicalized by Taylor Lorenz.
No, but that's what I mean. Like, it just gives the leftists the perception that they're being persecuted by like people like Chris Rufo and Chaya Rachik, but it's not like if you were going after people with substantial power, even on a local level, like even going after teachers, I understand because teachers educate the youth, and that's a different standard. But
so Scott Greer's take is this: the correct response to the Home Depot cashier being fired for wishing Trump died is I don't care. Libs got electricians fired for doing the OK hand sign, and other workers terminated for criticizing BLM. This isn't some great.
That's true. Some guy got fired for.
Yeah,
donating a Rittenhouse.
No, but I just said
Yeah.
it's bad optics. That's what my point was. It's not like I don't really care about like some blue wave, like fucking 60-year-old Walmart greeter getting doxxed. I'm just saying that it's a waste of our time, more or less. It's not, you know what I mean? Like it's just, I don't know. Yeah.
Like it is. It's
It
not
comes
a
off
good.
as unhinged. Like whereas going after a superintendent or going after a politician doesn't come off as nearly as unhinged. It's just some old boomer.
Like talking about the transgender
card.
industrial complex is way more effective, I think, in
Going after the Pritzkers is way better use of your time than going after like
punching up, you might say.
Yeah, I know that sounds so libtarded, but also like I'm not actually in power. Libtards are in power. Like yes, you should be punching up.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, the right and the left fundamentally are like structurally different. Like they're not. It's not just it's not two similar organizations with different beliefs. They're like fundamentally at different positions, and that changes the tactics that you can get away with using, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I mean, I get the point where like they do it to us, but it's just like I just think that you have to realize that a lot of Antifa people they'll go after low-level people that are connected to groups because their belief is that those groups are powerful, even though they're not. So I think like not to justify it, but I'm saying like I don't like I mean, if you were to, for example, I'll give you an example. If you were to go after like a lot of top tier, like even internet activists, like for example, the various networks that shill for Ukraine that are libtarded, or if you were to go after people that have a lot of these like Discord grooming servers, like the egg people, if you know what I mean, then that's worthy of your time. But some like random Walmart worker, I mean, unless you could prove that random Walmart worker is like, grooming people on Discord, that's, you know what I mean? I just think that it's a very easy get for libtards to be like, oh, see, you're going after just wholesome Chungus working class people.
Yeah, if you're gonna go after the low Bs, like that low B better be like making Troon shine and distributing it to minors.
Because teachers for Chai Ratchet was very easy because anyone could see that a teacher's pushing gender ideology on kids, and it's like, yeah, fuck them, right? But if it's just like some Walmart or like Home Depot woman, it's like, I don't know. It's like it's a less easy sell than if you were to go after a politician, a superintendent, a bureaucrat, someone, or even if you were to go after like a low-level think tank person that gets fucking coffee every morning. Though that is a way more effective target than some like chud Walmart greeter. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'm too wholesome Chungus, but I'm just saying.
I think the punching up thing is a good call, but it is.
But like Scott Greer said, who gives a fuck?
I think that this is a good chance to just let us all watch Chaya Ratchik's Ordeal of Civility, but also that I think that it just depends on what the left decides to do in response, because like she's already been doxxed, but if they start going after other guys again, then again problem. But
however, deplatforming Destiny, the little guy, totally on.
He's
board.
not a little. Well, he's a little guy, but
but his reach. I mean, if you were to like,
he's got like a fetus body. Like his his muscles just want to prevent his bones from like developing into puberty. Like it's sad. He's got like this neotenous physical features with a soilenial beard. It's just pathetic. And then you're a cuckold and you've left your child behind to do blow and live in Miami. It's sad. It's,
you know what's funny? I had that tweet that got like 4,000 likes about it. One of his like defenders, he's like, did you know his son's staying with him the whole summer? I go, yeah, like I said, the annual visit, you know?
Yeah.
But that's
Nightmare
what I mean, like
rotation, Destiny, Matt Kreisman.
Yeah, Matt Kreisman, Vaush.
I love that. I loved that Pat Casey tweet today, where it's just like Matt Kreisman
was spared
to live in his head because he has not witnessed everything that has happened in the last like 72 hours.
Oh my god,
that's so true. Joe Biden, wake up! Matt Kreisman, wake up! Wake up!
Wake up, Matt Kreisman.
All right, Gio, we've been doing this for 3.5 hours. I'm a working man.
His wife, like people
I have to get
insult
up at 5
his
in the
wife.
morning,
His
Gio.
wife
I want to
looks
get the
all
fuck to
right.
bed. I think his wife
looks all right.
Well, you can talk about that on your own time.
I'm sorry.
We're gonna end.
No,
the
it's because I
show
still feel
here.
guilty for kind of insulting his wife that one time. I mean, Matt Kreisman's, because Matt Kreisman's wife seems pretty loyal, and and that's pretty good. You know, they have a kid together. However, Destiny's fucking bitch whore of an ex-wife. Fuck her. She left him for some twink or whatever. I don't know, some kind of non-binary deal. But
What a weird scene. I mean, as weird as the DR is, like
yeah.
every
those
time I sort of open up, yeah, like
Yeah.
proper.
They're even more fucked than we could ever imagine.
I
yeah.
occasionally hate watch President Sunday, and
Oh God, that guy. Oh, or who's that other cryptoid? The guy with the hammer face. He was like some kind of DC operative. Dylan
Who knows?
Burns. Yeah. Oh,
Only
God.
time will tell. But until
They're all in
then,
a polycule or something. I don't know.
we'll see you all next week.
God bless. Goodbye. Too sweet.
Thanks for coming on there, Mr. Groiber.
thank you for having me.
Oh, it's been amazing.